Welcome back to Worlds of Protheka audiobooks. And if this is your first time, be warned. Once you step into Protheka, you'll never want to leave. With beasts who will stop at nothing to protect the women they love, and women who are only just finding out what a real man can be, you'll lose yourself in the dark romance of these fantasy stories. To bring you these free full audiobooks, we have to listen to this platform's guidelines, and they say that Protheka's steamiest scenes aren't allowed. But you can still get them from the unabridged version of any Prothekan audiobook. All you have to do is go to worldsofprotheka.com. With promo code YouTube30, we're offering you the opportunity to get 30% off of any audiobook, ebook, or bundle. We appreciate you subscribing to the channel, as it makes bringing these free full audiobooks to you possible. Don't forget to like and comment to let us know what you think. Protheka's magic is eternal, and this story is just the beginning.
Chapter 1. The meeting room is, according to my calculations, 10 seconds away from dissolving into a massive brawl. I'm inclined to allow it. Anything would be more entertaining than listening to Orok, an obnoxious elder, seethe with rage as he focuses in at the commander. The problem is, I actually agree with the ungrateful wretch. Ever since his woman, Inzo jabs a thick finger towards Irish, who growls in response, has come, you want to change generations of traditions. Why? He's mad. Of course he would mate with a human. And I say let him. We're lucky he hasn't taken up with his Hokin. I will tear open your throat where you stand. Camille, the human who has somehow tamed Yirish's wild temper, squeezes his arm and murmurs in his ear. He glowers at Orok, but forces himself to take a deep breath. I will slice your throat open where you stand if you do not apologize. Camille. Orok's smile is greasy and insincere, but his ire isn't focused on Irish or her, or even humans in general. I suspect if Loki opposed humans that Orok would find a caravan of them to bring into our clan. I apologize. I apologize to Irish's Hokin as well. I would apologize to Irish, but he's killed enough of us during his bouts of madness that I think we're about even. Enough. I speak before Loki can, which would be a dire error for any other Orcish clan. I grimace at him in apology, but I could not allow Orok's vile words towards Irish to continue. Irish is a good orc and my friend. If mating with this human woman has managed to calm his madness, then I cannot fault him for it. That doesn't mean what's good for him is good for the entire clan, though the chieftain and his cousins seem inclined otherwise. Loki regards me with a resigned sigh. Have you counsel for me, then, if you wish to hear it? His eyes soften a bit. We have been friends for a long time, and comrades in battle for even longer. I always wished to hear it. This I doubt, but I present my case all the same. If I may ask Irish's companion a question. Irish opens his mouth, but it is Camille who replies. You may. Thank you. Where exactly is your clan? I don't have a clan, she says. Some humans might. I lived in a bunker with my sister. And no other humans claim you? Her eyes flash with a pain I don't expect, and I almost regret my words. That's not a slight on you, I assure her. You have been an invaluable addition to our clan, but that's my point. Humans in general are individualistic. They value only themselves. How do they treat you in your bunker, Camille? Well? She shakes her head. Exactly. Loki's eyes begin to tense in frustration, but I push ahead. Humans blame so many of their problems on orcs, but their history books are filled with conflict amongst themselves. How many prisons did we uncover meant to hold members of their own clans? They are simply not meant for collective society. It's not in their nature, even if a few humans here and there have managed to do so. Much more than a few, my friend. Vala adjusts the ridiculous human spectacles further up his nose. I snarl at Vala. I am not his friend. I would even argue that their prison system, while crude, was an attempt to build a harmonious society. Their history books, as well as ours, are filled with war, yes, but it isn't the wars that bother me, I snap. The wars, if anything, are the only aspect I admire. It is the coups, the revolutions. Right. Vala's voice is dry. He shoots a pointed glance at Inzo and Loki. It's only humans who are known for conflict within clans. I meant... Loki holds up his left hand, and I silence myself. Let Vala speak. I let him speak. I would like to push the glass he wears into his eyes so I don't have to look at them any longer. But I let him speak. I am an orc, and I respect order. As I was saying, yes, humans are more individualistic than we are. They also have vast knowledge of medicine, science, art, and literature that our kind can never match on our own. I do not like how Loki is nodding along. I'm almost surprised to see Inzo doing the same, his behavior so different, especially toward his cousin, with a mate at his side. Vala folds his arms across his chest. Orcs and humans alike are changing, evolving. I don't need to explain to you how both of our birth rates have plummeted. I believe that the only way forward in this changing world is together. And I'm not the only one. Other clans are also seeing this. Would you like for us to be last? A clan with no sons, no modern medicine, clinging to a magic that has faded into obscurity? All of the important members of our clan are present. I can sense that Vala has swayed Loki. A murmur of agreement rumbles through the room, echoing across the marble walls, and Orok sneers. Is it because he hates humans, or because he has once again failed to sway the council to his side? I say that 10 of their hybrids are worth 1 of our full-blooded orcs. Orok's voice sets my teeth on edge. That would depend on the orc. Orok's battered ego is as eager for a fight as ever, and Vala, surprisingly, seems willing to match him. The latter steps towards him, unafraid. It's rare to conclude a meeting without some sort of brawl or challenge, but Orok flays my nerves, and Vala has dominated the entire meeting with historical facts about humankind that I would have gladly spent my life not knowing. I slam Orok into the floor before he takes another step, and he grunts in pain when his arm cracks against the polished stone. I shove Vala because I can. My decision is made. Loki is a good leader with a strong voice. The clan, eager for a fight, settles as he speaks. Humans with valuable skills will be allowed to integrate into our society. Vala is torn between applauding his chief and fighting me. To my regret, he settles on applause. He's a bit thinner than most orcs, but I have seen him fight. He would be a worthy opponent, and my temper is poorly leashed. It would be a relief to let it free. Orok squirms beneath me, and I rest the entirety of my weight upon him before I stand. He curses me, but is also not in the mood for a fight. I suppose he has started to become obsolete in his outdated opinions, and is already reserving his limited strength for his next challenge. Our meeting is concluded. I remain by Loki's side until even Orok has limped away, and then I move to leave as well. Loki does not often reject my counsel, and the fact that he has chosen to embrace Vala's absurd, humanistic views sting my pride. Wait. If I were a human, I suppose I could snarl and snap and be on my way. But I am an orc, with a sense of duty and honor, so I turn on my heel and bury my sigh. Yes, my chief. His lips twitch. I know you are irritated with me. You have always been wise. I pledge that you will see in time that what I say is true. Loki clamps his hand on my shoulder and squeezes. Are you sure you aren't looking for Vala? The barb is one that would not stand in public, but we are alone, and Loki does not stand on ceremony. He seemed to be telling you all the things you wanted to hear. And you were telling me the things I didn't. I trust your counsel, especially when I disagree. It is true, and I know it is so. Loki is a good chief and a good orc. That is why we have more to discuss.
Chapter 2. Bonnie. It's looking like this is going to be a harsh winter, Grandpa says, his voice carrying all the chill that the winter threatens. The signs are there. Unless we figure out how to increase our food stores, we're screwed. Grandpa Alvin doesn't have the patience to mince words by the end of the day. As a doctor, he has an impeccable bedside manner, but when he isn't dealing with patients, he gets rather blunt. He always tells me it's because he starts his day with only a certain amount of tact and civility, so he saves it up for dealing with the sick and frightened. I count myself lucky that I was gifted with enough patience to tactfully deal with my patients and everyone else. But despite his occasionally brusque manner, Grandpa cares about people deeply and is always looking out for the little guy. It's why we have our tiny settlement where we take care of those that society has pushed to the side. When other officially sanctioned bunkers have a terrible habit of abandoning anyone who has a chronic illness or disability, we take them in. Our little colony has about 15 members, nestled into a protected cove near a lake. From there, we can get a lot of our protein from fish, and it has the advantage of being ignored by most roving orc raiders, since they don't go near the area for some reason. Do you have any ideas where to start? Are there any jobs lined up? I ask. Well, we'd be in better shape if orcs hadn't destroyed Bunker 92. They were going to pay out big in supplies. But now, I don't know. It's getting harder and harder to find work. He looks over his shoulder, back toward the centre of our settlement, where a few people have gathered just to talk. We've managed pretty well to cobble together adaptive equipment for those who need it. It's not often pretty, but it's functional. It just means when a group gets together it looks like a junkyard exploded. I'll be damned if I fail our people, though. I could try travelling tomorrow to see if any of the surrounding areas need our services. Not that I'm the type of jerk that wants someone to get really sick, but we need to be needed if we're going to get the supplies we need. Doc! Rufus calls to Grandpa from his guard tower. It's more of a covered platform set up on an abandoned telephone pole, but it does let him see anything approaching. He peers over the edge of the platform and sees me. Dr. Hart, when did you... Never mind. I see an orc caravan coming. They don't look hostile, but it could be a trap. Rufus lost his leg due to an infection after his bunker was raided by orcs. Since then, he's always been keenly aware of orc movements, but still gives them the benefit of the doubt before he opens fire, which is a good thing since he's deadly with a rifle. You keep an eye on us, Grandpa says, and we'll go check. He jerks his head toward the road, and we walk out, staying low to the dunes, unsure if this might end in bloodshed. We watch as the caravan approaches, and then suddenly, Grandpa stands up and yells, "Roz, you old son of a gun, how are you doing?" Roz smiles up as Grandpa descends the dune. Alvin. I'm still not sure that counts as a term of affection like you said. Roz laughs before dismounting and embracing Grandpa. While some orcs and humans don't get along, it isn't universal, and Roz and Grandpa get along well. A while back, when travelling, Grandpa found Roz's caravan after they'd been attacked by a rival orc clan, the Red Swords. Grandpa patched up the injured, including saving the life of one of Roz's people. Since then, they've been good friends. What brings you all the way out here? Grandpa asks. Not that I mind the visit, but you have our guard Rufus riled up a little. We were in the area, gathering supplies for the winter, and I thought it was time to pay you a visit. I step slowly down the dune. Oh, Roz, this is my granddaughter, Bonnie. Oh, your apprentice. It's nice to meet you, Bonnie. Pleasure's all mine. You were saying you were gathering supplies for winter, I ask, curious what the orcs have done to prepare. Ah, yes, our shamans predict it will be a tough one. We were just discussing our own situation given that, I say, as I wonder what signs the orc shamans look for compared to what my grandfather observes. I've been focusing so much on the study of medicine that orc culture and meteorology have taken a back seat. Yeah, Grandpa sighs out the last syllable. We have a small community here, but that doesn't mean we don't still have mouths to feed. We also have to worry about enough firewood for heating. It would be easier if not for the Red Swords, I say. For the first time during the conversation, Roz's smile falls slightly as his hand goes to the hilt of his blade. "Have they been bothering you?" he asks. "Oh, no. They don't come this close to the coast," I add quickly. "They've just managed to make things difficult for us in other ways." "How so?" he asks, relaxing slightly. "After they destroyed Bunker 92, we're sort of screwed at the moment," Grandpa adds. "I'd done a bunch of work for 92, and then before they could pay us, they're just gone, scattered and in no position to give up anything at the moment. I wish we could do something about the Red Swords, but while the Burning Suns are strong, we can't defend everyone against raiders." "No, one expects you to. I'm not trying to guilt you here," Grandpa says, just explaining the situation. "I know you said you were gathering supplies, but are there any areas you know of that we could forage?" I ask. Just something to get us in a better position while we try to work to get more through our fishing. The orc rubs his chin, thinking. I don't know if the gesture is something he picked up from humans or if certain mannerisms are universal, but it makes me smile. Most things have been picked pretty clean by the time we got there, and we only left behind what was needed to ensure that there's something to forage next year. But Roz pauses and waves over another orc. He says something in a language I don't understand, and the orc runs back to the caravan. We can spare some to help an old friend. Roz, I appreciate the offer, but we can't be taking food out of the mouths of your children here, Grandpa says. We still have a much larger territory to forage than you do, and I don't think we ever really properly paid you, given the number of us you helped before. We probably owe you more, but we still do need to survive. Number Roz, I can't accept that, Grandpa says. I set a hand on his shoulder. It would be rude to refuse such an offer, I say. I can't let my grandfather's occasional bouts of pride stop us from supporting the community that relies on us for survival. You should listen to your granddaughter, Alvin. Grandpa rolls his eyes dramatically at me. I changed your diapers, you know. And I'll probably end up having to change yours soon enough, old man. I shoot back. Ouch, Grandpa says, but then laughs. As if that was a signal granting permission, Roz laughs as well. The orc Roz sent comes back with a small cart. Well, old friend, Grandpa says, I hope to see you again perhaps when we're in better shape and can speak of happier things. Wait, Alvin. Before you go, I have an idea that will greatly benefit your colony and my clan. What is it? I ask, beating Grandpa to the punch before he can try to refuse another offer.
Chapter 3. I've already discussed it with the shaman, and he agrees with me, Loki says after everyone else has filed out of the conference room, leaving just me and him to stare at one another from across the table. It's in our best interest to integrate human doctors into the clan before winter hits. I cross my arms. Okay? What does this have to do with me? Loki's expression is one of muted amusement. Then he continues as if I hadn't spoken at all. They should hail from a local settlement so as not to inconvenience the candidates. There are several within a day's journey from here that I'm told have decent medical expertise. We should begin there, and then spread out if we have to. I shrug, growing irritated. Good luck. I should say the same to you, he says simply, eyeing me intentionally. You're the one in charge of finding them. No, I say before I realize it. No way. Loki raises an eyebrow at me. It's stupid to challenge a chieftain, and that's not my intention. I mean, why me? Shouldn't Roz be doing this kind of thing? Have you seen me interact with humans? I have every faith in you, Yor. Maybe too much faith, I say. I'm not exactly the kind of orc to show up at a human settlement and not get blasted to hell by their boomsticks. What if they think they're being attacked and run away instead? Hell, even Enzo would be a better candidate than I. I mean, no disrespect, Chief, but I think you've made a terrible mistake choosing me for this job. Roz is out, gathering supplies for the winter, and is indisposed to our cause. Inzo is settling in with his new mate, and the others are out hunting to gather resources for when the weather turns. That leaves you. And I wasn't asking. I grumble under my breath. Of course, there's no one else. And then a little louder. Whatever you say, Chief. He releases me with a curt nod. Good hunting, you're... I pivot on my heel before I dare roll my eyes, then storm out of the room. How can he put this on me? I'm not suited to dealing with pesky little humans. I don't even like being in the same room as them because they make up for their short stature with their massive egos and sly tricks. I can't stand them. Loki seems to think they'll be useful. I think they'll just get underfoot. Leave the healing to the shamans and be done with it, I say. We don't need their help. I'm stalling, pacing through the settlement so that even my own clansmen leap out of my way to avoid my fury. There's only one orc in this whole place who won't just tell me what I want to hear, and I need his advice. I find myself slamming on his front door with a heavy fist, rattling the hinges. Yirish! It's Ur! Open up! Silence greets me. It's not an anticipatory silence, but a dead one, and I come to the realization that nobody's home. My forehead hits the wood with a thunk. For a married man, he sure is elusive. And I know he hadn't gone out with the hunters, not with his new mate and child to worry about. So, where could he be? I ask around, trying to locate our commander. No one seems to have seen him since the meeting adjourned, but he can't be far, and I'm determined to find him. After a time, I stumble upon the sounds of a couple entangled behind a wide sycamore. I dare to take a peek when I see Urish, with his human mate pushed up against the tree as they're shamelessly making out, his hand up her shirt. I'm about to slip away when Urish's eyes open suddenly, and he spots me with a look of surprise and confusion. Camille notices his distraction and glances in my direction, going beet red as she adjusts her shirt. I issue a little huff and storm away, pretending not to see anything. No one pursues, and I'm glad for it. I hate how Wyrish has fallen over himself for his new mate, like she's his only source of oxygen. Sure, she helped him solve his blood curse, but it seems he exchanged one madness for another. He can't even separate himself from his mate for more than an hour before crawling back to her. Ridiculous, I think. They'll never make me crawl. So much for the advice. I'm deep in thought when Vala stops me, refusing to yield to my anger like the others do. Ur, he says. What is wrong? You've been storming about all morning. With his delicate round spectacles sitting on the bridge of his nose, he looks silly, trying to emulate the humans and their ways. How can anyone take him seriously? A growl seeps into my tone. Nothing is wrong. Is it about your quest? Has everyone else heard about it before me? Maybe, I finally admit. What does it matter to you? Loki suggested I might join your team for the sake of diplomacy, since you seemed concerned about it, but it doesn't appear that you have a team yet. Apparently the glasses do work, I grumble, baring my tusks at no one, then try to soften my dark expression. You spoke with Loki. He pushes the glasses back up his nose almost defiantly. I did. When do you plan on heading out? I haven't thought about it yet. The elder shoots me an easy grin. Allow me to assist with the preparations. I'm fine. Winter gets closer every day, he warns gently. The sooner we can secure doctors for the settlement, the better. He takes a step back as if to disengage from me. Hurry, Loki is fair, but we all know he doesn't appreciate his orders being disregarded. I let him walk away for the first dozen feet before stopping him. Wait. He pauses and pivots back to me in mock curiosity. You're right, I admit. I need your help. That smile returns. Let's get started then. By late afternoon, we've assembled an ironclad team of orcs for the journey, small but effective for what we need to do. My most trusted are among them, Urag and Yag, along with myself and Vala, who will prove a good investment, if he can convince the humans not to attack us on first contact. From Loki, we received a more detailed description of the settlements and their locations. I do have to wonder how he manages to scrounge up information like this. The humans don't want to be found, and it could take an orc a lifetime to find one bunker. But I'm glad for the intel. I'd rather not begin this journey blind. Yogg returns to me just before sunset as I'm packing a few things of my own into a rucksack. It's not much, but the journey shouldn't take more than a fortnight. Any longer than that, and we'll be pushing our luck against the elements. Everything's ready for our departure. We're traveling light, I say, refusing to be bogged down by beasts of burden or a heavy cart. Where we're going, they'll just slow us down. We'll take only what we can strap to our backs. He issues a nod. And make sure the old orc is ready to move, or you're carrying him. Yogg laughs at that. I'm serious, I warn. He laughs harder. I know. He doesn't mean anything by it, but his mirth irritates me. If he wasn't such a damned good fighter, I wouldn't have bothered bringing him along. He settles as we walk to the gates in silence, the sun finally setting over the western horizon. Vala greets us first, his yellow eyes bright with adventure. Finally.
This huge orc brings out the animal in me.
In a world where humans have been driven underground, living like rats is the only way to stay safe from the marauding orcs.
All my life, my only job has been to make sure I have enough to eat.
These orcs of the Burning Sun clan will vow to keep their human mates safe.
There is a nobleness to these giant savages, alpha male warriors who will protect their women at all costs.
Get this complete series of books following the Burning Sun clan for 70% off. Each book is a full-length monster romance that features a giant orc with eyes for his beloved, curvy human. Happily ever after guaranteed.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
This bundle will show you that size really does matter.
Chapter 4. Bonnie. I lie in bed, tossing and turning. Roz's proposal keeps my eyes peeled open, and sleep eludes me. The Burning Sun clan is looking for doctors, he had told my grandfather and I, and we'd be honoured to have you both join us, just for a time, to teach us medicine. You will be well compensated for your trouble, enough resources for the whole settlement for as long as you're willing to work with us. But it's entirely up to you. Us? Teaching orcs? Ridiculous. I'd been to the Burning Sun clan once before, when an old friend of mine, Camille, reached out to me as her pregnancy came to an end. I stayed in her home for a few weeks, helping with the orcish child, and although her mate was kind, I avoided all other orcs. The idea of interacting with the orcs of the base is preposterous. They don't see us as equals, and I can't imagine trying to teach them. I doubt they'd listen, as most see us as weak, inferior creatures. I turn on my side, staring at the dull brown wall, then over again, until I can't stand it and rise from my bed. I need fresh air. The others are fast asleep in their wind-blasted huts, snoring soundly without a care in the world. I'm envious, but I'm glad for them too. At least they don't have to make such a tough decision. Who knows if the orc meant what he said? Even if Roz is an ally, orcs are known to take what they want, when they want to. They are the adversary of our race. Should they be allowed to share in our knowledge? The guards are posted at their stations, but this part of the world is quiet. We don't have enemies in the vicinity, so all we have to struggle against is nature, herself. It makes for a peaceful camp, overall, nestled up against the lake's edge. I slip out through the gates without anyone noticing my absence and trudge down to the beach, where the wind is constant. Watching the waves has always helped me think, and I have a lot to think about tonight. I slip my shoes off and let my bare feet sink into the sand, wiggling my toes as I sit on a low dune. The moonlight sparkles off the ocean, making this solitary place feel almost magical. The cool breeze sweeps away my worries, and I lie beneath the stars with a relieved sigh. I don't know what my grandfather is going to say, but I will make my own decision. I am a doctor too. Just the thought fills me with accomplishment. How many years did I spend studying under him, poring over his antique books just to earn the title? He told me that long ago, before the orcs, they had massive schools to educate thousands of students in the ways of medicine, thousands of doctors spread all over the world. I can hardly imagine it. I don't think I've met 1,000 people in my lifetime, but I do know my stuff. Our job isn't pretty, but it's necessary, and every patient that is made better because of my hard work is worth the years of study and practice. But are the orcs worth it? That thought sours my good mood. If I heal them, will they turn around and sack human bunkers, undoing my efforts of saving lives? Are their lives worth more than the people I can help? Roz came to us with a generous offer, but I know next to nothing about his people or their ways. And simultaneously, we're desperate, without enough resources to keep our own fed through the winter. If I take this chance, it could protect those that I care about, while hurting those I don't know. It's a conundrum, all right. My grandfather seemed uncertain, though he spoke to Roz's character. I want to speak more with him before I make my decision. I would do anything for my people, but this... It's as if the universe is mocking me, putting our salvation just out of reach to see how far I'll fall. Then I wonder at it from a different angle, kicking some stray driftwood out of my path. Is my life, my freedom, worth more than the lives of my people? It's a thought that sits wrong in my gut and makes me crave my grandfather's counsel. I skirt the line between grass and sand, keeping the water at my back as I spot the lowlights of our settlement, emitting its own soft glow against the backdrop of night. No matter what, this is my home. I'm considering returning when a figure shoots through the trees a dozen yards in front of me and disappears into the darkness. I can't exactly be sure what I've seen, so I crouch down and sneak closer. It didn't move like a wild animal, lumbering and oblivious, or even like a stalking cat, slinking with murderous purpose. It must have been human. Or orc, under the circumstances. I won't know until I get a better look. I push up against the rough bark of a tree and peer into the darkness. That's when I see it again, two this time, zipping through the trees side by side. Darkness shrouds them, so the second I catch sight of them again, they're already gone. I pursue, realizing how they're closing in on the outskirts of the settlement, and a terrible feeling comes over me. My heart races, but not from running. I nearly throw myself into a pool of firelight before skidding to a stop just before the tree line. The men I've been pursuing join a third figure with a torch. I'm about to call out, thinking they're my people, when I see, 30 feet beyond them, is another group of human males setting fire to the forest I played in as a child. I swallow down a lump in my throat. Raiders, I realise, and there are more than I can scare away on my own. If I went out there, they would laugh at my pathetic attempt. I don't even have my shoes on, let alone a weapon to defend myself. There's never been a reason to, until now. Their voices are gruff and low as I remain frozen in horror. They're cast in a warm light from their torches and the burning brush fires they're coaxing into being. Why are they this far out, terrorising us of all people? None of it makes any sense. I need to run, to scream at the top of my lungs and warn the others before someone gets hurt. There are children asleep in their beds who might suffocate before they even wake up. I can't let that happen. I know what I need to do, but my body won't obey. When someone is brought to me, bleeding out from a hunting accident, I'm quick on my feet, my movements steady and confident as I stem the flow and wrap the wound. I don't hesitate. I can't afford to hesitate when someone's life is on the line. None of my training has ever prepared me for this. And now I'm useless. I clap a hand over my mouth as the flames grow out of control, and their work is complete. The raiders flee back into the darkness, which is quickly being swallowed up by light. It gets closer, and I feel the heat of it on my face. "Move!" I scream internally. "People are going to die!" It's only when a branch pops and showers me with sparks that I regain my agency, and I flee, kicking up dirt behind me, screaming all the while. The raiders have fallen back and will wait until we have evacuated before closing in on our resources. It won't be long until we're besieged on all sides. Chapter 5. Bonnie. My feet are bleeding, but I don't have the luxury to care. The southern wall has already caught fire, the flames rapidly consuming the dry material. Soon it will spread to the rest of the settlement, and it will be too late. I push myself to run harder, my limbs burning at the effort, but it's nothing compared to what will happen if I am too late. I can almost feel the raiders gloating from the shadows, waiting to swoop in and take advantage of a crisis of their own design. Bastards! I think, tears of hate blurring my vision. The wind changes direction, fueling the fires and whipping the flames into a frenzy. Nearby trees have been caught in the crossfire, pluming 20-30 feet high. I blitz past the useless guards, who have fallen asleep at their posts, and scream with all my soul, trying to wake the others. Several people have already emerged from their huts, clutching their loved ones in fright. A flash of green skin blitzes past me, and I recall that the orcs had remained with us while they awaited our answer. It's a small relief to see them helping. But I don't see my grandfather among the crowd. "Grandfather!" I scream, pushing against the fleeing crowd. "Alvin!" That's when I spot his hut, the door still securely shut. Flames have just begun to lap at the hay bale roof, and I power forward with all my strength. I will not lose him to raiders. He is the most intelligent person I have ever known, and we would be all the worse without him. I throw the door open to find him already out of bed, gathering up his precious medical books. There are far too many for him to carry on his own. I grab him by the shoulders. "Grandfather, we have to get out of here." "I won't leave them," he protests. "They can't be replaced." "It doesn't matter. If you die..." A terrible crack sends sparks cascading down over our heads, the roof threatening to collapse at any moment. I look desperately from my grandfather to his priceless collection, then join him in gathering them up. Maybe if we work quickly. A figure stands in the doorway, too tall for its low frame. Roz. "Help him!" I call, and Roz instantly takes my grandfather's books from him and escorts him out of the hut to safety. I'm about to follow when another terrible crack explodes above me, and burning hay comes tumbling down in front of my exit. I fall to the side to avoid the worst of it, but the heavy beam holds fast, barring me from the exit as I choke on white smoke. I shield myself from the heat, keeping the books pressed to my chest. I can't even scream. There's no air here. Beyond the heavy crackle of flames, I think I hear shouting. The deep bellow of a voice, and then the flames swallow even that. My head spins, and fire chases down my throat, sucking the moisture out of me. That's when I see a gap in the shattered wall, with fresh night air streaming in. I crouch down and wriggle through it, losing a book or two. But grandfather will have to forgive me. I did my best to keep his collection intact. When I birth myself from the wreckage, more flames greet me. I stand shakily to my feet and move in the direction of clean air. My steps are uncertain, and I'm suffering from smoke inhalation, but I'll survive. That's when I hear a child's cry. "I'm sorry, grandfather," I think before dropping the books in a heap, but my oath demands this. I follow the sound of coughing to a half-burned structure and tear at the panelling. Slivers cut into the pads of my fingers, but I yank until something gives, and a young boy comes tumbling out. His hair is singed, and he's about as washed up as I am, but he's okay. We share a knowing look before I take his hand and drag him to his feet. "Come on," I call over the fires. "We have to get out of here." He follows me through the settlement until we reach the burning gates. Triumph devolves into fear when a raider lunges in our direction with a wicked machete. Its edge has been dulled to shatter bone, and he's not afraid to use it. I push the child behind me and lunge at the bastard, catching him by surprise. He's not prepared to strike when I shove him to the ground and go for his weapon. He manages to raise the machete high, only for me to strike his inner elbow and disable the blow. We roll together, our limbs tangled in defensive locks. He gnashes at me with yellowed teeth like the savage he is, and I clock him in the jaw, sending him reeling. But it only seems to enrage him further as he forces me onto my back. This time, I won't be able to block the strike. The heat of the flames is all around, and soon we'll all be engulfed in hellfire. There's a mad gleam in the raider's eye. It frightens me more than the blade cutting down at my skull. The boy cries out, distracting my attacker. Just in time for Roz to appear, knocking the bastard off me. The raider goes flying. Roz looks satisfied with himself before he drops his weapon, a heavy plank of wood, and ushers us through the gates. Singed and breathless, I see my grandfather among the crowd and chase towards him, falling into his arms empty-handed. I'm sorry. I tried to save them. His well-weathered hand strokes my hair. It's my fault, he admits. You shouldn't have put yourself in danger like that. They're just books. My laugh is miserable. Not just any books, I think, imagining how the pages are already curling, the old glue melting from the bindings. Knowledge that we will never possess again, up in smoke. I swipe the ash-stained tears from my cheeks and look back at the settlement, which is fully ablaze now. I can feel the heat, even from this safe distance. The other survivors are crying too, some more openly than others. What will we do now that our homes have been destroyed? It would take years to rebuild, and the raiders already know we're here. We'd be foolish to try. I realise, in a sudden rush of terrible inspiration, that my problems before are nothing compared to what we must endure now, without home or hearth. I drop my head to my grandfather's shoulder and let the tears come. Roz and his clanmates are salvaging what they can, dragging out any resources that might still be useful. This is not their home, and still, they're trying. I don't know what to make of them. If it weren't for Roz, I'd be dead now. When the flames settle to crackling coals, blankets and food are shared. Nobody has much of an appetite yet, but we need it for the road ahead of us. There's nothing left here, not a net or pole to feed us. Our hard-earned grains were lost to the fire as well, and the raiders got nothing in return but victory. If only they'd left us alone. Roz approaches us as we're rationing a loaf of bread. I'm sorry for your loss. No one has the heart to reassure him. He sits beside my grandfather, looking between us. There's talk of travelling south, but what are you going to do? My throat is raw from the smoke, so I only shake my head. Think about my offer, he says. This doesn't have to be the end of your clan. We can provide housing for everyone here, if you'll allow us to help.
Chapter 6. This time we don't get within a dozen feet before the gates slam shut, nearly taking my nose. No amount of bargaining will get it open again. We've already learned that the hard way. So much for diplomacy, I grumble to myself. Vala claps me on the shoulder in an easy gesture. The day has just begun. Don't give up hope just yet. I shrug off his reassuring hand, raising my voice so the trembling humans behind the gate can hear me. How are we supposed to speak with them if they run and hide like rats? Then, lower. This was a terrible idea. Let me try, Vala says, then steps towards the heavy wooden barrier. Humans, we're but a peaceful troop of orcs searching for candidates to fill the position of doctor within our clan. I roll my eyes as he continues. Are there any among you willing to speak with us? The crickets in the field grow louder. No, I ask. Shocking. Vala's brow furrows as if he's surprised by the response, or lack of one. 3 days we've been out here trying to curry favor with pests, only to send them running and hiding in their little hovels. I didn't believe we'd be successful, but this failure makes me want to rip my hair out like I have any despair. I recall Camille making out quite fearlessly with Irish not all that long ago. Are humans like her and Inzo's mate so rare? Even the chieftain has stoked a friendship in his new human companion, which seems to yield more hope that someone will take a chance on us than the idea of the mate bond striking. I know we have a bad reputation among their kind, but Loki has offered a handsome price for doctors. And seeing how the humans live in the wild, I would have expected they'd jump at the offer. Come on, I say to my team. We'll find no sentience here. So we pull out the map and hunt down the next settlement, 20 miles south. Where first Vala and the others were jovial and lighthearted, they're now quiet and reserved. We're all feeling the weight of defeat. If Loki hadn't insisted we do this the polite way, we could have been home by now, drinking ale and toasting to our success. A kidnapping doesn't sound all that bad, in exchange for a 20-mile hike. This is our last stop, I say. Vala begins to argue when I stop him with a raised hand, silencing any dissent. We're almost out of rations, and I'm not going to suffer myself for Loki's foolish errands. We've done our best. What more can he ask of us? Vala's jaw shifts. We still need a doctor. Then he can find one himself, I say with finality. Last stop. No one says anything more as we trek over the rough terrain well into the late morning, until the sun is beating down on us from above. This time, the settlement is a meager spattering of tents among the trees, surrounded by nothing but occasional sharpened pikes to ward off animals. An elderly woman's gaze falls on us, and she begins screaming to alert the others. In a great egress, they run, abandoning their food and supplies. We step into the hastily abandoned camp and take a look around. There's a dog, lashed to a pole that has been abandoned. It barks wildly at us, but we ignore it. I steal a skewer of meat and take a bite before pointing its end at Valhalla. See? I ask with my mouth full. The meat is bland and strange, and reminds me of why I hate humans. I throw the stick into the fire and watch the flames consume it. We're going home now. I hear no protests from them. Even Vala is unusually silent. We went out of our way to invite humans, and they haven't even given us a chance to speak, let alone consider what we have to say. Other orc clans may be violent and cruel, but the Burning Sun clan is different. I'd have thought word would have spread further by now. But it seems they are insistent on treating us as the monsters they presume us to be. It's not easy to return home, empty-handed. Failure leaves a bad taste in my mouth. As the sun begins its descent to the west, we spot our settlement nestled against the forest. No one speaks on it, but our relief is palpable. At least here we can be assured of a warm bed and a hot meal. I'm so tired of jerky. The guards allow us in with a wave, though there's a hubbub near the gate that distracts everyone from our return. I push past several onlookers to find Roz has come home, with a sizable flock of humans, no less. I don't think I've ever seen this many within our walls before. Urag and Yak remain at my side even as Vala goes to inspect the humans. They're ragged and smeared with ash, looking just about as skittish as one would expect of their race. They are small next to the guards that surround them, who look to be protecting them as much as keeping them from leaving. Maybe Roz will have more answers for me. Roz, I call. What is all this? You're... He comes to me and we embrace. It is good to see you again. It has been too long. I don't understand. I may jest about wrangling unwilling doctors into our services, but these humans don't look like they're exactly happy to be here. It fills me with frustration that Loki might have given me one set of orders, and put Roz on the same quest with another set of orders. Not only that, but we are different from the rest of our kind. We don't just go around snatching up humans because it's convenient. We're sacking villages now? Roz's eyes widen in surprise. No, of course not. I think there must have been some misunderstanding. I cock a brow at him, looking from his mirthful face to the leery expressions of the humans, some with very small children on their hips. On closer inspection, they look exhausted, their faces stained with old tears, and they have few enough possessions among them, which makes me suspect they didn't have much time to pack. An old man clutches several large tomes to his chest, as what must be his granddaughter consoles him. She looks familiar, but the rest of them are foreign to me. I don't know where he found this bunch, but I wrinkle my nose as I take them all in. They reek of misery. Roz turns to the soldiers. Make sure they are fed well and put up for the evening. It has been a long journey for all of us. Then he turns to me. Come, you should speak with Loki straight away. I follow, confused. Tell me this isn't what I think it is. He says nothing. Have we stooped to stealing humans, then? I thought you were the tactful one. My frustration is blooming into anger as I don't get the answers I'm looking for. Roz. A misunderstanding, indeed. Roz, talk to me, I say, spinning him around by his shoulder and forcing him to face me. This isn't like us. I thought we were better than the other clans. With the utmost patience, he removes my hand and meets my eye. Everything will be explained in good time. It's not all what you assume. I scowl at the back of his head as he leads me to Loki's office. Chapter 7. I hate how Roz keeps his upturned lips sealed until we reach Loki. Our chieftain remains seated when we enter, dismissing his human secretary before our meeting begins. Close the door, will you, Mary? He asks. She gives a stiff little nod and does so without delay. If only the other humans were so tame, we wouldn't have to worry about cajoling them into talks. I still recall how they fled at the sight of us. I ball my hands into fists at my sides. Loki's expression is cool and collected as he offers us the seats beside him. Neither of us accept, so he begins. What's going on out there, Roz? Roz glances at me with a guilty smile before beginning. We found 2 doctors that were willing to join our settlement, chieftain. His eyes brighten at the news. This is fantastic. Good work. I point at the door, and in the general direction of the gates. That doesn't tell me why you brought their whole village here. We can't possibly consider feeding more mouths with winter at our doorstep. Loki didn't seem privy to that information before now. There are more of them? Roz scratches the back of his neck. I can explain. Please do, Loki says. He clears his throat. Alvin is a doctor and an acquaintance of mine, so we intended to stop by and inquire about his services, since I knew you were looking for a doctor. What we didn't know was that raiders had already set their sights on the outpost and planned a siege. Loki looks to be holding his breath, a lone finger tapping on the table as Roz speaks. The flames spread too fast for us to stop it in time. If we hadn't been there, I don't think most of them would have survived the fire. I spoke with them, and they agreed to fill the roles, on the condition that we help Alvin's people as well. The words bubble up before I can stop them. That's ridiculous! Surely the value of a single doctor is not so great as to warrant such an expense? Let me remind you, Roz says, that I spoke of 2 doctors. Regardless, they're dangerous creatures. They'll slit our throats in our sleep, or worse. Even Loki glances at me with amusement, which only stokes my rage. I do my best to stifle it, lest I say something I'll regret. Send the others away, Chief. We are not a charity to be used, and we don't have the means to support them. Roz only smiles. Alvin once saved an orc, with no question of remittance. His granddaughter Bonnie is just as talented. He gives Loki a knowing look. Bonnie? The chieftain asks. Camille will be thrilled, don't you think? Yurish as well. I sneer at both of them. Am I invisible here? We can accept 2 doctors, not the crowd you've already brought within our walls. They are good people, Yur. He doesn't spurn us because of what we are, just as we shouldn't turn them away because of what they are. We have a responsibility to protect them, and will gain more from keeping them here than banishing them to the wilderness. There's a fire in my chest. It's bad enough I have to trip over Yarish's half-blooded kin. This will only make them think they are our equals, and it's a matter of time before they challenge us for the position of leadership. I hold my tongue on the matter, looking at Loki. Surely you see reason? I do, he says simply. I think Roz made the right choice. I am surrounded. Roz is a fine negotiator and a better tradesman, but he's not afraid of paying a favor back when it is required of him, and it throws his loyalty into question. It makes him weak. Loki. I begin to protest, but am cut off by a wave of his hand. Your judgment is colored, There's no need to fear these humans. He doesn't show an ounce of impatience, though I know my outburst was uncalled for. I trust Roz in this matter. These humans need our help, and we have the resources to keep them. It would be cruel of us to turn them away when they have lost everything. The Burning Sun's reputation will not be sullied by a hasty decision. I want to smack Roz's smug smile off his face. They're just humans. With a wealth of knowledge we haven't even begun to discover, Loki interrupts, ever calm. We can set them up somewhere on the border where they won't be a bother to you or others who share your sentiment. In exchange, he continues with an air of authority, one I know better than to argue with, they can help us expand our understanding of the world. You can't put a price on knowledge, and we can't afford an opportunity like this to slip away. I chew on my bottom lip. No one listens to my warnings. They'll go gladly to their own demise so long as they're right. I'm tired of trying to argue reason. Even Loki is sold on Roz's pitch. Fine, I concede with a growl. But leave me out of it. Roz calls. Wait! I storm out before they can say anything else, slamming the door behind me. We have made great sacrifices to make this settlement habitable for us. I don't want a bunch of scheming humans destroying it. I hate that I am the only one who still harbors caution. But I cannot go against the will of my chieftain. I let out a groan of frustration and stalk back to the center of town. There, the orcs and humans are starting to mingle. If I must abide by Loki's ruling, then at least I can gauge if they're worth the trouble of having them. Even as the others push forward to greet and feed them, I hang back and watch. The old man, Alvin, is speaking candidly with Irish. He seems well at ease here among orcs. I'm surprised at how his wrinkled face lights up when he laughs. Irish shares in his humor easily. The humans remain huddled together, but the guards have drifted away, still watching them carefully as they fraternize with my clansmen. I dare draw closer, my resentment fading for curiosity. As they eat, they seem less wary, and the children start to laugh and play. During our quest, I only saw them from a distance as they ran away from us. Here I notice they have a myriad of expressions I hadn't bothered to notice before. And I realize after a time that they are like us, except smaller and weaker. Maybe Loki has a point after all. I smother the thought, grimacing at myself for entertaining the notion. They may look helpless now, but their skill in weaponry has far surpassed our own. A species cannot become so developed without having a destructive impulse hiding behind those innocent eyes. And it only takes one wayward human to destroy everything we fought for. I draw closer still, so that I can hear the conversation that's growing. My kind asks many questions of them, some relevant and some silly. Urish even pipes in once in a while to correct them in the ways of humans. Of course, he knows all about them. He's mated to one, which sounds like some dreaded punishment. Who would want one of these creatures prattling in their ear all day? They'd have to be mad. Soon I find myself among the crowd, drawn unwillingly into the thrall. But I can hardly see the humans any longer over the heads of my clansmen. Their interest in them is naive at best, and dangerous at its worst. I nearly jump out of my skin when someone taps me on the shoulder. "Excuse me," comes a lilting and unfamiliar voice. "Do you need something?" I pivot to snarl at the offender for surprising me, but when my gaze falls upon this human female, my next breath abandons me. She's the one that I recognized from earlier, though I don't know from where. I'd barely given her a second glance from a difference, but up close my mind is stalled as I take her in. I've never seen such pale, creamy flesh before. And her eyes tell more than her full lips dare to say. I'm swept away by it, and I find my muscles going slack as I stare deep into her gaze. Who is she?
From the depths of the darkness of Protheka
Or clawing up from the realms of fantasy?
come the most fearsome beasts you have ever seen.
These monsters are done watching from the shadows.
Now, as they step into the light, something unexpected grips them.
Something even they can't fight off.
Love,
Vampires,
demons,
dark elves,
gods.
minotaurs, creatures of light and dark.
They will protect their mates.
Do whatever needs to be done.
Morally grey heroes who will burn the world to protect the women who love them.
10 audiobooks,
Fall into over 60 hours of fantasy romance.
20 ebooks,
Over 1 million words of these brutes who will protect their women.
even if they might destroy themselves in the process.
Get the immersive Protheka fantasy romance bundle.
For 80% off, right now, dive into Protheka at a once-in-a-lifetime discount.
The first bundle to offer both ebooks and audiobooks on worldsofprotheka.com. Protheka's magic is eternal, and this Romantasy bundle will make it endless. Chapter 8. Bonnie. The orc stares down at me with such intensity that I have to fight the instinct to flee. The red dragon lacing his spine and the hard knots of muscle in his back stoked my curiosity, but now I wonder if disturbing him was a mistake. I shift my weight awkwardly as we look at one another. I've rarely been this close to an orc before, except for Roz on occasion and the few weeks I was around Irish. But this one is handsome. His features are more angular than those I've seen on his kind before. His high, hard cheekbones and the sharp curve of his jaw brush his temples, where thick black hair is sheared closely to his skull. I blink a few times, realizing I've been examining his face for longer than is probably socially acceptable. His eyes haven't left me the entire time we've stood here, and I can't help but take note of the unique colour. A dark, deep gold, like burnt honey. Do you need something? I repeat myself, clearing my throat, my discomfort growing as I'm met with silence again. My heart sinks as I begin to wonder whether this orc is one of the many who dislike, or even hate, humans. Ever since we've arrived, we've received a variety of reactions from the orcs in this clan. Most have been at least tolerant of our arrival, some curious enough to speak with us, and a few even seeming pleased by our appearance. Others, however, have glowered at us from the doorways of their homes, spitting on the ground as they look at us, or whispering darkly to one another. None have been outwardly hostile, but there's a noticeable tension in the air as orcs begin to approach our group and speak with us. My head begins to pound thinking about all that my people might still have to face in order to have even a chance at surviving the winter. While Roz assured my grandfather that his chieftain, Loki, is a reasonable and compassionate orc, we still have not received an official approval of our presence in the camp. Besides, even if Loki does choose to extend his hospitality to all of our people, we may still have to contend with other unhappy members of the clan. I relaxed a little once I saw Irish come out, even introducing him to my grandfather. I'm still wound tight, though, and I haven't been able to spot Camille anywhere. I've been hoping a friendly face would help ease the tension in my body. I shake my head, trying to dispel the fear that threatens to close my throat. We may have lost our home, but we will build another. Whether it's somewhere else or here. With this mute orc and his people. Maybe he's simply not skilled in human languages, or has some kind of disability, I think to myself. I'm not sure why the idea of this particular orc hating humans bothers me so much, but regardless, there could be a variety of other reasons for his lack of social graces. Survivors are beginning to unload their belongings from Roz's caravans, so I smile timidly at the orc in front of me, not wanting to seem impolite or judgmental in case there is some kind of barrier preventing communication. I turn away from him, walking towards the caravans to help the others. I mull over the puzzling interaction as I pick up a box, wondering what that orc might say if he could. Would we be friends? Or would he hate me, hate us, for intruding on his clan? The box I'm holding in my arms suddenly disappears, and it takes me a moment to register the sudden lack of weight in my arms. I whip around to find the mute orc from earlier standing behind me, the box I'd been holding now in his arms. "What are you doing?" I ask, and then remember that he can't speak. My face flushes as I realise how impolite I'm being by continuing to push past his obvious limits. I don't want him to think I'm trying to belittle him. "Helping." I start at the sound of the low, quiet voice that comes from the orc in front of me. My surprise at not only his ability to understand me, but his choice to communicate back, quickly fades to glee. If he's helping, he couldn't possibly hate us that much, I think as I grin up at the orc. "I'm Bonnie," I say, thrusting my hand towards him. The orc's eyes look from my face down to my outstretched hand, before landing on my face again. "You're," he replies, making no move to take my hand. I let my arm fall limply between us, trying not to show how crestfallen I feel at his refusal to shake my hand. Yur's eyes wander my face for a moment more before he begins to walk with the others across the camp. Before I know what I'm doing, I fall into step beside him. Of course he doesn't want to shake my hand. We're just more mouths to feed, and right before winter no less, I think to myself darkly. I stiffen my lip before I allow myself to fall back into that pit of despair. No, I scold myself inwardly. I'll just have to prove how useful we can be. They need us as much as we need them. "Thank you for your help, Yor," I say, as a small collection of buildings comes into view in front of us. When all else fails, being polite is a good place to start. Yor grunts in response, eyes still straight ahead as we walk together. Better than no response at all, I tell myself. "So what's your role in the clan?" From what I understand, orcs tend to have hierarchies that help keep their clans running, I remark, hoping that my limited knowledge of orc customs may spark conversation. "I'm Loki's second," Yor responds curtly. I'm surprised that he'd be taking the time to carry boxes if he holds such a high rank in the clan, but then again, his assistance bodes well for us. My heart leaps at the realisation. There must be some hope for us to stay here if Yor approves. "How do you like it? Being Loki's second, I mean?" I ask as I watch his face, trying not to seem too prying but unable to help the curiosity I feel. What a strange orc, to hold such influence and say so little, I muse. It's very unlike my experience with human men who occupy positions of power. Yor simply grunts in response again, and I fall silent beside him. I have a bad habit of pestering people according to my cousin Mary, so I try to bite my tongue the rest of the walk. We're nearly at the collection of small houses we're being led to when I spot Roz in front of a 2-story building on the edge of the structures. That's a good conversation starter, I think excitedly as I wave to Roz, who gives a friendly wave back. He must know Roz, and perhaps he'll feel more comfortable if he knows Roz helped us too. I turn to Yor, ready to tell him about all of Roz's assistance in saving what little we could of our former home, when I realise he's gone. The box he'd been carrying is on the ground beside me, but he's nowhere to be found, even as I turn in circles to see where he might have gone. I sigh, picking the box up and carrying it the few remaining yards into the heart of our mini-village on the edge of the clan's land. I try to shake the feeling of being disappointed, telling myself that there are a variety of reasons he may have disappeared. Why does it matter where he went anyway? A piece of me asks. I feel silly for feeling like perhaps we were becoming friends. He was just fulfilling his duty as a leader in the clan. What a strange orc indeed.
Chapter 9. "You're next!" I hear a human voice call from inside the clinic. Once again, it has been a busy day here. A steady stream of orcs to treat as well as the training and instruction that the doctors are helping us with. The sun beats down hard today, and I am glad for the shelter underneath the large tree that stands a short distance from the building. I'm intrigued by the ways in which my clan members have been interacting with the humans, and, as many would expect of me, I'm always on the lookout for any signs that something is not right, or that these humans cannot be trusted. Yet so far I have seen nothing but collaboration and goodwill, even friendships that seem to be forming. A week has passed since the humans have arrived, and despite my distaste for them, I must concede that they have settled in well. So well that I have been hearing the constant compliments and admiration for the doctors. Not only have they made progress here, but have integrated well into the clan, taking up positions in different roles on the base. It's something so strange to witness. And there are times when I find myself admitting that I may need to succumb to Loki's way of thinking if things were to carry on in this way. But I still wonder if I will ever be able to come around fully. A deep distrust of other species is etched into my bones after what the Dark Elves did to us, and the protection and prosperity of my people and the generations that will succeed us will always be my main priority. As orcs, we must rely on ourselves. This has always been the way. Forging new alliances is something new to us, and I am wary of it. After all, we have only started doing this amongst ourselves and our own clans, so many of whom have been rivals over the centuries. And now there are humans to contend with. After everything we have all been through, and all that has ripped this world and our species apart, surely it cannot be as simple as Loki and the others make it out to be. Humans are very different creatures to us. Weak, manipulative, and cruel. There are many that lament their skills, knowledge, and ingenuity, and for that I do not blame them. But we have also seen the other side of this species. Orcs are known for our strength and brutality. It is what we have come to respect and strive for, and at least we are honest about this. Humans, on the other hand, pretend to be civilized and more advanced than us brutes, but we all know the rot that lives in their puny bodies underneath that smooth skin. Then there is Bonnie, the only human that has ever made me feel anything other than disgust for these people. Something about this woman is different, makes me feel different. I can hardly think of anything or anyone else. The fact that her face won't leave my mind has made my jaw ache from its constant clenching as I try in vain to resist the incessant thoughts. Is this what has happened to Urish and the other orcs that seem to have fallen prey to the wiles of human women? So many of them have started to take human mates, especially chieftains. News of this has been spreading for many months now, and what at first seemed unfathomable is now definitely a reality that we are starting to live with. I won't deny that thoughts of Bonnie have preoccupied me of late. She certainly is a woman of strength and capability, and she is of course more beautiful than any woman, either orc or human, that I've ever seen. Her cousin Mary has been instrumental in helping Loki with administrative duties, something the humans refer to as a secretary. I've also learned that Camille is an old friend of hers, and she has spent much time with the pair since she arrived. I've noticed the difference this has made to Bonnie. Her mood is often good-natured, happy even. A human happy on an orc base and orcs complimenting humans. What is this new world coming to? Seeing her this way has warmed my heart in a way I didn't think possible. Since setting eyes upon her, I have not been able to forget her. There is not a waking moment that I don't wish to see her in my line of vision, and have gone out of my way each day, several times a day, just to see her. This is not something I can let anyone notice. If that were to happen, it would undermine what I stand for and continue to stand for. The supremacy of orcs and the need to remain separate. All notions of coexisting hopefully coming to nothing once these silly ideas have run their course and proved impossible. But if I can just get a glimpse of her, catch sight of her from afar, it quells that urge inside me. In unguarded moments, I think about approaching her, but thankfully my pride wins. I can't succumb to such fleeting feelings, the urges that threaten to take control of the best of us at times. What would the clan members say if I, the one orc that has consistently spoken of my disdain for humans, were to become friendly with one, especially a woman? There are not many things that have made me feel shame, but this is one of them. It is not merely friendship with this woman that I seek, and those feelings and urges should be directed towards orc women only. I lean against the tree, watching as she constantly appears and then disappears from behind the windows. The sight of her is like a salve, much like the healing she is administering to the orcs inside. Orcs have been arriving by the dozen to seek her help since she arrived, something that certainly has not escaped my notice. Anger begins to erupt inside me, and I grit my teeth. The way some of them look at Bonnie is enough to undo me. What are they doing? Are they under the same spell that she seems to have cast upon me? Or is it merely that they are grateful to have a doctor that can finally treat the ailments that the dying magic can no longer do? I turn away, pacing up and down like someone half my age, a lovesick orc that is not even fully grown, and certainly not the second in command of a clan. This won't do. I can't reduce myself to this, not just because of a human woman that seems to have orcs across this damn base queuing up to gawk at her. My mind becomes crazed, almost like Yirish himself, and a part of me, a part that I know isn't true to what I am or feel, wishes that I'd never even met her. Never have I been in such a position, and I am not experienced in such matters. Combat, leadership, and strategy are my strengths. They are what I am made for, not this. Certainly not this. Suddenly I am drawn from my torment by the sounds of cries in the background and see a group of orcs rushing towards the clinic, pushing a bloodied and unconscious comrade inside. My head returns to the here and now, my alert levels raised and focusing my attention on where they should be, protecting this clan. There is a sense of panic as they try to get him inside, the voices of my men sounding desperate, and her voice from inside the building small as she seeks more information on the wounded orc that they will need immediate treatment from the looks of it. What on earth has happened?
Chapter 10. Bonnie. "Hold him!" an orc yells as a tumble of green skin, thick muscle and dark red blood crashes through the clinic door. Their voices and faces convey the panic that they obviously feel, and I'm momentarily stunned by the display of raw, masculine power that pervades the room. For a second, a small worm of fear wriggles through me, but once I hear their cries of, "Can you help him?" I immediately return to medic mode. I drop the herbs that the orcs had gathered for me yesterday, and that I had been arranging into a container, rushing to the wounded orc. "Get him on the bed," I instruct. There is a lot of blood, and he is unconscious. "What's happened?" I ask, observing and assessing as much as I can, and wishing that my grandfather hadn't gone out with the shaman and left me here alone. I scan his body, noticing the deep gashes that have caused so much of the blood loss. "An animal attack," says one of them. Something about that doesn't sit right with me. How could an animal cause so much damage to an orc warrior? Orcs are known for their toughened skin, one of the reasons why humans have had to develop specialized weapons to penetrate it. Maybe it was a pack of some sort. Immediately, I attempt to stem the blood flow so that I can get these wounds closed. I fetch plenty of gauze, bandages and iodine, as well as the items I will need for sutures, something that I am not practiced in yet when it comes to orcs, but I have no choice. The anatomy is the same. I can only hope that the needles I have will be sufficient. Taking some shears, I see the look of concern on the orcs' faces. "Help me," I say, as I begin to cut away his clothes. Piece by bloody piece we relieve him of his garments, so that I am faced with a half-naked, very injured orc. But before I can even start to clean the wounds, his eyes open. They are red, like balls of fire, and there is a grimace on his face that makes my stomach churn. He jumps up from the bed, hurling himself at his friends, attacking them in a way so frenzied it's almost hard to take in. Fight or flight responses abandon me, and all I am left with is freeze, watching in disbelief as they are knocked to the ground and pummeled to within an inch of their lives. The sound of skin and bone meeting at such a force sickens me. Blood sprays across the walls and the floor, and there is nothing I can do. My legs won't work. My mind is frozen. I am suspended here in time and space, utterly vulnerable to the crazed orc that has now set his eyes on me. Finally, I find my voice, letting out a scream that seems to come from the deepest pit of my belly. It shocks my body awake and I stumble backwards, hitting the edge of a counter. I shake uncontrollably as the orc raises his fists, and I close my eyes and wait for the pain. Then it comes. An immense roar, the likes of which I've never heard before. Opening my eyes, I see a giant of an orc that has entered the clinic. It takes me a second, but I remember his face from when we first arrived. It's Ur. He lunges towards the rampaging clan member that is about to strike me down. His size and strength so great, he manages to wrestle him to the ground. I watch in horror and disbelief as the wild orc whips himself up into an even greater frenzy, his eyes wild, while he froths at the mouth. But my rescuer seems more than capable of dealing with him, as though he has done this 100 times before. His strength is awe-inspiring, though with his build this is hardly surprising. His arms alone have more muscle in them than that of 8 humans. I've never realised how tall Ur is, but, as if I needed more confirmation, his tunic rips in the struggle, and I can see the tattoo of a dragon that creeps up his back. "Hold him!" he bellows at 3 more orcs that burst through the door, and make sure that his arms and legs are secured tightly. "Yes, sir," I hear before they join him on the clinic floor. The enraged orc spits and growls, his eyes becoming redder with each minute that passes. Though I am terrified and am very aware that I could be dead by now if it were not for Ur, I am still a doctor, and this creature's distress pulls at me. But I can't think like that now. "Please, don't hurt him," I say softly. Ur looks up at me with an expression I can't place. His eyes glow with anger, and I am taken back, stunned into silence like our first encounter. He turns his attention back to the floor, where his soldiers are pinning the orc while another binds him. Finally, when he is no longer a threat to any of us, they leave him there to let his frenzy burn itself out. For a few minutes we stand in silence. All that can be heard is the heaving of breath, the dying growls and the scraping of the orc's body against the floor as he squirms. My heartbeat returns to a more constant state, though my head feels faint and dizzy. I've been through some scrapes in my time. Who hasn't in this world? But that was the most serious and frightening of all of them. His breaths also become calmer, heavier, and the growls eventually die out. I cast my eyes over to the other orcs that are now starting to come around after their ordeal, their faces bruised and bloodied. It shocks me how they are able to sustain such an attack and come back to consciousness as though it were a simple brawl. Maybe to them it was. I am no expert in how orcs behave and have certainly never seen anything like this before. The sheer rage and brutality so terrifying, I am shaken to my core. I had no idea I could be in such danger, and how it could happen so quickly. "Tether him to that bed," says Ur. "He will be okay now." They do as he asks, picking up their bound fellow warrior, while the others arise from the floor and make to help also. I almost ask them if they need me to treat their wounds, but something inside me, maybe a dose of self-preservation, tells me to stop. Ur watches as they carry out his orders, then marches to the clinic entrance, his hands on his hips, his figure in the doorway huge and imposing as he composes himself. Eventually he turns to me, and my heart starts to thud again in my chest as he takes huge steps towards me. "You can leave now," he tells his men. His sternness and size unnerve me, but his face and his words put me at ease. He seems serious but also concerned, not quite gentle, but there is something that tells me he cares for my well-being and about the ordeal I have just been through at the hands of one of his men. Though his face is serious, his eyes are different, as if there's a warmth to them that is hiding somewhere under those heavy lids. Ur looms over me, his form so big it's hard to imagine how he manages to be so quick and efficient in his movements, such as those he has just displayed when dealing with his crazed subordinate. His voice is low and deep and gravelly when he asks, "Are you okay?" I nod, still shaken. What happened to cause him to go so wild?
Chapter 11. There have been so many times I have dealt with situations such as this with Irish, it almost comes as second nature now. And yet in none of those circumstances did I ever feel the mixture of pure rage and fear that I have just experienced. Something about the frenzy of the attack and Malthus' mannerisms reminded so much of my friend, it was unsettling. There is only room for one mad dog in this clan, and that title has already been claimed. Even more concerning was how quickly it happened. It had been little more than a few minutes between the time I saw him being bundled into the clinic to the scream I'd heard from Bonnie. It was a sound that I hope never to hear again, not from her. I don't know what happened, I say honestly. I will look into the situation once he has had a chance to come back to his senses. It just happened so quickly. I was just about to start cleaning his wounds, and it hurts my heart to hear her voice so small and to see how shaken she is from this ordeal. Maybe this is proof indeed that humans and orcs cannot coexist. I can only imagine what he would have done to her if I had not been here. It would make me sick to my stomach to even begin to think of it. All I can do for now is apologize on behalf of my people and this clan. You are our guests here after all. There is no need, she says. There's obviously something wrong with him, and he can't be held responsible for how he's acted. Her compassion floors me. How can she be so understanding when this idiot has almost killed her? Maybe. Can I suggest that you take the rest of the day to rest? You have done more than your share here today, and have had a big shock. I look at her ashen face. Though she is paler than normal, she is still beautiful. Her long, dark hair is gathered with a scarf, and I would happily drown in those huge eyes of hers. I need to treat him, she says. Yes, I've had a shock, but it would go against my nature and my oath not to. I cannot possibly let that happen, I say, determined that she should never even breathe the same air as him again. With respect, isn't it? The hairs on the back of my neck stand to attention at the sound of my name on her lips. Yes, I say, almost lost for words. I thought we'd met. I'm Bonnie. I almost laugh that she thinks I would not remember her or her name. I've thought of nothing else since we met. Can I thank you for assisting me in this matter? If you had not turned up when you did, then I think we both know what you would be dealing with now. Well then, let's not think about it, I snap. She looks at me slightly bemused. What I mean is that as a doctor, I see this not as a personal attack, but as the actions of someone who is ill, both physically and mentally. If you could just allow me to treat him, I would feel all the better for it. Then I will rest, as you've asked. The way she looks at me and her request to treat an orc that has almost killed her does something to me, and I know there is no way I can refuse her. Who is this woman, and how is she made of such things? Very well, I say, but I insist on being here. Thank you, she says, a gentle smile on her face. And I think I'd insist on it too after the last time. Her smile grows, and I can hardly believe she can find humor at a time like this. I'm not an orc known for joviality, but just the way she says it, plus her insistence on me staying to protect and watch over her, sends a deep wave of warmth through my chest. Of course, I say, nodding. She lets out a deep breath and scrubs her hands over her beautiful face. Okay, she says. Let's do this. On the bed, Malthu is now calm and slipping back into unconsciousness. Her eyes rake over his restraints, and I fear she's going to make another request. Do not even ask, I say firmly. Don't worry, I won't, says. I'm just checking they are not too restrictive, and that his circulation won't be affected. In truth, if it were down to me, it would be more than his circulation that he would need to worry about. It has taken everything I have not to take his head off with my axe. But I must remain calm and in control. There is enough madness doing the rounds. I watch as she begins to tend to him, her elbow hitting me in the arm as she cleans his wounds. You do not need to stand quite so close, she says, turning to me. I had not realized I was, but I'm still reluctant to move any further away from her, not while he is here. I've seen how this madness comes out of nowhere, and though I am quite satisfied that he is sufficiently tethered, my body just does not want to be further from her than it needs to be. It would help for me to have some space, she says calmly. I swallow hard and do as she asks, creating enough space between us so that I am not in the way of her working, yet close enough to put an end to this warrior if he tries anything like that again. Watching her work, I cannot help but admire her composure and dedication to her work. Not only is she beautiful, she is also courageous. Though her body is slender and seems frail compared to that of an orc as well as many humans, she is strong and courageous. This woman has the soul of a warrior. This experience has done nothing but exaggerate my feelings for her now that I know how truly remarkable she is. How can that happen to me? Someone who has had little time for humans. Time seems to stand still as I gaze upon her, enthralled by her skills and her beauty. When she finally says, "All done," I have to shake my head to come back to reality. But there is no way I will leave her yet. He could still wake. She wipes her brow with the back of her hand, and the paleness of her skin worries me. She looks up at me, almost as though she isn't there and isn't registering that I am in front of her, and that's when I see her sway as her eyelids flicker. Immediately I reach out and catch her before she drops to the floor. Our gazes lock, and she looks away, a shyness creeping over. In my arms she feels like heaven, and her scent travels up into my nostrils. Her body is so different to mine than an orc woman's. She is soft against my hardness, and I find myself wondering what that would feel like. Something kicks in, my head battling my heart as it fights the urges that are taking me over. I want her but can never have her, and that is the way of things. But I gaze at her for a final few seconds, knowing I can never tell her about these feelings. I help her back to her feet, already missing the feel of her in my arms. My heart races like a wild thing. Am I doing the right thing?
Protheka is a dark and dangerous world.
My parents sold me to the dark market.
I am the avatar of chaos, and nothing will stop me from fulfilling the prophecy.
And the quest for godhood has made it even darker.
Looks like you're the only one left. Take a step forward.
Delia only seeks her freedom.
A gilded cage is still a cage.
But Thorn has something else in mind for her.
It's her. She's the woman from the prophecy. My key to godhood.
Will they be able to escape their fate? Get every episode from worldsofprotheka.com right now. Get the series bundle and score a 70% discount. Protheka's magic is eternal, and this series is just the beginning.
Chapter 12. Bonnie. I'm a little nervous stepping into Loki's office. He's been very welcoming, but I'm sure I know what I'm being summoned for. He'll want to know what I found out about the berserk orc. Unfortunately, I don't have any good answers yet. And I don't like that. I want to be useful. My anxiety increases when I get there and find that it's not just Loki waiting for me. Grandpa, Ur, and the clan's shaman, Bashag, are all there already. I can feel their eyes on me when I enter the room, though it feels like Ur is watching me in a much different way from the rest. Or maybe I'm just imagining things. I'm so glad he showed up when he did. I feel like I owe him something. But that will have to wait. Have a seat, Loki says, pointing to an empty chair. Ur was just explaining to us what he saw happen. Ur continues to eye me until I'm settled into my seat. That was really it, Ur says. I needed help taking him down. It took all of us together to do it. I'm just glad you were walking by when you were, Grandpa adds, giving my shoulder a squeeze. I put my hand on his and squeeze back. Bonnie's lucky. Yeah, lucky, Ur says, looking at the floor. Yes. We're all glad you're okay, Bonnie. Loki sounds like he just realised that he should be concerned, not like it's disingenuous, but I guess he has a lot on his mind at the moment. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm good. The worst of my injuries is going to be the bruise from when I backed into the counter to get away from him. I really am lucky you showed up, Yor. Thank you. Yor just nods. Can you tell us what happened? Loki asks. I'm not sure how to describe it exactly. It all happened so fast. I guess I can say that the patient came in with injuries he claimed were from an animal attack. It seemed strange that one animal could do that to him. When I tried to treat his wound, he went berserk. His eyes went red. He attacked everyone around him. First the other orcs, then he came for me. I smashed into the counter as I backed away from him. He raised his fist and I thought I was dead. But then Yor was there, and they got him subdued. But he went for the orcs first, Loki asks. Yes, I answer. Loki steeples his fingers, peering over his fingertips to examine me. Do you have any ideas what could have caused it? Grandpa asks. Examining the orc's blood revealed some kind of darker contaminant, I say. Do you think he was poisoned? Bashag asks. It starts to feel a bit like I'm being interrogated with everyone throwing questions at me one after another. I'm still even a little shaky from the ordeal and want a moment to decompress. But I can understand that this matter is urgent. If whatever happened to him happens to someone else, it could get very deadly very quickly. It's possible but too early to state definitively if it was a poison or not, and I have no idea how it would have been administered. There are still tests to run, and we should investigate this supposed animal attack that happened before he lost control. Maybe some kind of venom set him off. It could have been something he ate or drank, Grandpa suggests. Are you saying someone slipped him something? Loki asked. Maybe, Grandpa says. But it could just as easily be some other sort of contamination. Maybe the wrong plant or herb got harvested and mixed with something he ate. Way back in Earth's history, there was a fungus that grew on rye. When people ate it, they got very sick, but because they didn't know about fungus then, they ended up attributing the sickness to witchcraft. Though we mustn't rule out actual witchcraft, as it were, says Bashag. He looked a lot like Irish did when he was taken by battle madness. Yor's voice carries great concern. I know that his wife said it could be a brain sickness, but could it be something that has spread from him now that he's cured? It would be our luck that as our magic fails us, the only magic preserved from the Protheka is a curse, scoffs the shaman. At the moment, let's not rule out any possibilities, I say, though I'm not sure how exactly I'd test for magic or curses. Bashag looks at me and frowns. I'm not sure if he thinks I'm dismissing the possibility or something, but it's not like I've isolated a magic gene marker or something. I'll work with Dr. Alvin to see if there are any ways we can test for magic, he says. I'd like to help. I'm afraid I offended him somehow. I'm not dismissing it, I swear. I'm sorry if I made it seem like I wasn't taking the option seriously. Oh, no, it's not that. I think you might want to rest after your ordeal. I'm just realising that magic has been the best way to detect magic, and I'm unsure how we do so now. I feel the sudden weight of guilt lift off me. I don't want to upset our orc hosts. They've been so kind. Perhaps you're right. I could maybe take it easy. Get out of the clinic for a bit. Thank you, Bashag. The shaman nods. Then it's settled, says Loki. Thank you, everyone. Let's be on our guard. If we are lucky, this is a one-time ordeal, but I'm confident that Bashag and the Hearts are capable of getting to the bottom of this, and hopefully we can prevent this from happening again. I've never seen Grandpa move so fast as he rushes out the door. I don't know if it's the scientific curiosity or sense of urgency that has him in such a hurry, but Bashag practically has to chase after him out the door. I get up slowly, my side still aching somewhat. Thank you for your time, Loki says, before looking back down at everything scattered around his desk. I walk out just behind Yor. He turns in the opposite direction I'm going, but I can't let him go just yet. I have to thank him somehow. I really would be dead if he hadn't shown up when he did. Yor, wait, I call out. But he just keeps walking. I start chasing after him, calling his name. After the 5th or 6th time, he stops and turns around, looking like he's coming out of a daze. "Are you okay?" I ask. His eyebrows furrow. "Yes. Why?" "It just seemed like you were lost in thought. I called several times and you didn't seem to hear me." "Sorry, I don't like fighting one of my own clan like that. I can see how that might be stressful." "Was there something you needed?" he asks. My mind goes blank for a moment under the intensity of his stare. He's intimidating looking, even by orc standards, but he seems like he's actually really nice. Still, standing there under his gaze has me a little nervous. Eventually, my words start to form. "I just wanted to say thank you for saving my life." "You're a guest of our clan. I can't let you die while you're under our protection." "But I still want to say thank you." "Didn't you just say thank you?" Perhaps with a bit more than just words. As soon as I say it, I realise how it might sound. "Maybe dinner?" He stares at me and says nothing. "Dinner tonight?" Ur neither moves nor speaks. My place. Ur just watches me, and I want to say something, anything to fill the silence, but I'm afraid I'll just ramble now. What if he refuses? Is he disappointed I didn't mean something more? Or disgusted at the thought of even eating a meal, let alone doing something more intimate, with a human? Or maybe just me specifically? I feel the colour in my cheeks rising.
Chapter 13. You're perhaps with a bit more than just words? My mind starts to run wild with interpretations of what that could mean. But I say nothing. Bonnie can't possibly mean what I think she means. That seems a little forward, but I don't know much about human gratitude customs. I don't know much about humans at all, which makes talking with Bonnie difficult since I'm still learning. It's a thought that doesn't perturb me as much as it once did. I saw how happy Irish is with Camille, but that seemed like a fluke, like Camille and Irish were something special. Then there was Inzo and Carissa, who I suspect has to have something wrong with her to put up with that bastard. I thought they were an odd match. Two people who were just so different than everyone else that it worked. And they all are different and special, just not in the way I thought they were before. Maybe an orc and a human aren't such a contentious pairing after all. The more time I spend with Bonnie, the more my thoughts on the matter change and evolve. But when I see a blush creeping up her cheeks, I think she realizes what her offer sounded like, and that it wasn't what she intended. Then she suggests dinner. Cooking someone a meal is much more in line with something an orc might do, though there's a small, quiet part of me that is sad to hear her clarify that she was suggesting dinner tonight. I banish the thought. I'm not sure why I'd want to do something that intimate with a human. Though Bonnie isn't just any human. I may not have been around many humans, but I doubt they look this adorable when embarrassed. I almost let it drag on longer just because of the way it makes me feel when I see her like this. Her face does little to hide her emotions. It's almost comforting in a way. But I can't let her suffer like this much longer. "Dinner would be nice," I say. "At my place. You could follow me home and we could talk while I prepare something for us to eat." "That sounds nice. Lead the way." Her smile is brilliant as she turns, and I gladly follow her through the city. She slows down a bit as she's walking, looking a little confused as she turns back to look at me. "What's wrong?" I ask. "Do people usually part for you when you walk down the street?" "They don't for you?" "No, but I'm also not particularly intimidating, I guess." It wasn't something I had really noticed. Or not so much that I didn't notice it happening, but that instead, it didn't seem like it was something worth noticing since it had been that way for so long. But I guess just being bigger than most people makes it more likely to have others prefer to just get out of my way. It's not like I step on people. Much. But once she mentions it, I can't help but feel hyper-aware of it now. Most people step out of the way without even a glance from me. Through the mostly unobstructed street, we make it to the house she and her grandfather have been given. It's nicer than a lot of places. A real step above the shared housing a lot of the new arrivals have, while they await new homes to be constructed. But it makes sense since their skills are so valuable. Our people were very reliant on magic for healing. That meant there wasn't a need for us to learn that much about the way the body works and how to properly heal it. It's a lot of catching up for our people to do after our magic left us. In the meantime, if that means we take in human doctors, I guess it's a good thing. Even better if they're like Bonnie. "Do you like it here?" I ask. "Oh, it's lovely," she says, opening the front door and welcoming me inside. It's a warm and cozy home, and it really looks like Bonnie has done a great job settling into the place and making it her own. There are little odds and ends on shelves, things that might have some meaning, purpose, or significance that I'm unaware of. But it feels like she brought a little bit of home with her. A lot of her decorations are made with driftwood and seashells. And I'm glad that I have plenty of food now. Things were starting to get lean back at the colony. Do you mind if I cook something I'm familiar with? I really haven't had the time to find out many of your people's recipes, though I am interested in doing so when I can find the time. Given how busy you've been, I'm not sure when that will be, I say. Bonnie laughs. Yeah, I might have to take a back seat for a while. But yes, some human food would be fine. Thank you for being so understanding. I just nod as she starts busying herself in the kitchen. I take a seat at the table and watch as she starts pulling out pots and pans and dishes of various kinds. Does shepherd's pie sound good? I swear I must have misheard, so I just tentatively say, I'm going to guess it doesn't actually have shepherds in it. It is fun to learn that her skin flushes red just as easily when she's laughing as when she's embarrassed. No, it doesn't actually contain shepherds. She lists off some ingredients. Beyond lamb, the rest is pretty meaningless to me. But lamb is good enough, so I just nod again. I've never had any human food before, so I'm not really sure what to expect, though possible cannibalism seems unlikely. However, given how little I actually know about them, I can't say it is something outside the realm of possibility. But orcs are a hardy people, so I don't feel like I have to worry if something in her cooking might accidentally harm me. If we were closer to the coast, I'd make a fish dish for you since that's what I'm most comfortable with. But I doubt we could bring fresh fish this far inland before it wasn't quite so fresh. She laughs and then busies herself in the kitchen. I mostly just sit and watch, offering the occasional affirmative grunt when it seems appropriate. I'm shocked to learn about how the humans cast out the sick or infirmed as though they serve no purpose or don't deserve to live. It's things like this that are why I've had so little interest in learning about humans before. They seem like very cruel and capricious people. But hearing what Bonnie and her grandfather have done to restore dignity to their fellow humans is really starting to make me realize how I lumped humans together much too quickly. I'd hate for someone to judge the actions and honorability of all orcs off of the actions of the people like the Red Swords. Rufus came to us after a raid cost him his leg, she says when I asked who protects her village. He wanted to feel useful. It really didn't take much to cobble together a prosthetic or set up the pulleys for his guard tower. Then I hear a floorboard creak upstairs. When he first showed us how he can shoot... Bonnie? Yes? It's just you and your grandfather, right? Yeah, she says brightly, but she must see the look of concern on my face because her smile falters. Is everything okay? I hold my finger to my lips. It is one of the few human gestures I have picked up on. She falls silent but still looks at me, concerned. In one hand, she holds a knife. In the other, I think she called it a potato. Some kind of root plant my people really haven't found much use for. She sets them both down on the cutting board. What is it? She says in a voice just above a whisper.
Chapter 14. Bonnie. Hide! Now! I'm shocked at the quiet urgency in his voice, and it takes me a moment to uproot myself from where I stand. Ur stands from where he was seated at my kitchen table, quietly moving towards the staircase. It's equal parts unnerving and comforting, the way he's changed in the span of a few seconds, from relaxed, joking, and open to one of the most deadly predators I've ever seen. The house is silent except for the sizzle of the lamb on the stove, and then I hear it. A creak upstairs, as if someone is shifting their weight. How Yor picked up on such a small sound over the noise I was making in the kitchen is beyond me, but whatever could be causing the noise upstairs, I'm glad he's here to check it out. I grab the knife I'd set down on the counter and squeeze under a hollowed-out bit of the kitchen counter as I watch Yor slowly make his way up the stairs. My hands shake as he moves out of my line of sight, the shaking made all the more visible by the sizable blade I'm clutching. I breathe deeply, trying to calm my body and mind. It could be nothing, I tell myself. Maybe it's just an old house that creaks sometimes. Maybe some sort of animal got inside through a window. It could be anything. No sooner have I finished the thought than an orc body flies down the staircase, landing in the middle of the living room with a resounding crash. I bite my lip to stifle my shriek, pressing myself further into the wall behind me and making myself smaller as I watch the unfamiliar orc struggle to his hands and knees from where he landed. Who the hell is that? And why is he in my house? I think to myself as I watch the orc collapse under his own weight again, clearly still reeling from his injuries. I can see his back rising and falling, so I know he's alive, but I doubt he's getting up any time soon. Upstairs explodes into noise, and I hear shouts and the scuffling of several pairs of feet, which are quickly followed by fleshy thuds, grunts, and the crashing of furniture. My mind is racing. I've never felt as useless as I do right now, listening to Yor defend a home that isn't even his as I hide like a child. I take a deep breath, trying to gather my courage, as I crawl out of my hiding spot and along the side of the counter, trying desperately to get a view up the stairs to see how I could possibly help Yor. As I round the corner of the small island in the centre of the kitchen, I can see the source of the noise Yor, tangling with 3 orcs. While none of them are quite as large or intimidating as he is, they are still leveraging an unfair advantage. Yor holds his own, landing vicious blows against the attackers, but panic rises in my throat as I realise he can only fend them off for so long. Should I go to him? Try and help him fight them off? Should I scream, distract them? Or would it be better if I ran to try and go get help? I think frantically, the knife beginning to shake in my hand once more. No, I can't leave him. I have to help somehow. I'm dragged from my thoughts by a noise to my left. I whip my head around, and I realise with horror that it's the orc in the living room, and he's staring right at me. Time seems to slow down as the orc rises to his feet, his eyes never leaving mine. I scramble backwards, dropping the knife in my hand as I instinctually try to put as much space between us as possible. A piercing scream echoes through the small house, and it's only a moment later that I realise the scream was mine. Just as quickly as time slows, it speeds up again. The orc is dashing towards me, his hands outstretched, deadly intent in his eyes. I throw myself sideways, around the corner of the island, as he crashes into the counter where I just was. I drag myself up, looking desperately around the kitchen for absolutely anything I could use to defend myself. The orc rises to his feet again, and I throw my hand out, grabbing the first thing it touches, the sizzling frying pan of lamb. The orc dives for me again. This time, instead of giving in to my instinct to flee, I swing the frying pan as hard as I can at him. The scorching oil in the pan crackles as it meets his flesh and boils it, while the red-hot pan makes contact with the side of the orc's head. The orc howls like a wounded animal, clutching his face as he falls to the ground. I lunge for the knife I previously abandoned, grabbing it as the orc roars in fury. Somehow the orc's on his feet again, and I waste precious seconds looking at Yor. Our eyes lock, the desperation in his gaze mirroring mine as he tosses another orc off of him, pushing towards me. "Look out!" he shouts, and I turn my gaze back towards the orc in front of me, just in time to see him charge at me for a third time. I shriek, ducking under his massive outstretched arm and slashing wildly. My knife is ripped from my hands as it finds its mark. The orc yelps, reaching for where the hilt of my knife protrudes from between his ribs. "Run!" Yer roars from upstairs. The orc's eyes narrow on me as he rips the knife from his newest wound. I search for a way out in a frenzy. The orc is blocking the only exit, and Yer is tangling with 3 more upstairs. An idea, albeit a bad one, takes form in my mind. No sooner is it complete than I'm putting it into action. I turn on my heel and sprint for the kitchen window, raising my arms as I dive through it. I feel the orc's fingers rip at the hem of my pants as I fly through the opening, knocking me off balance but not stopping my escape. I hit the ground hard, my knee cracking as it slams against the ground beneath me. I roll before coming to a stop and scrambling to my feet, glancing behind me to see my attacker, no longer in the window. I start running as fast as my battered body will let me down the hill and to the closest residence. "Help!" I scream frantically as I hobble down the hill, my leg threatening to give out under my weight. "Somebody please help!" My foot slips on my next step, and I tumble a few feet down the hill before I'm able to stop myself. I struggle to my feet again, watching as a light comes on in the residence that's now a mere 50 feet away. Tears of relief begin to stream down my face as I wave my arms frantically above me, trying to grab the attention of whoever is in the house. I open my mouth to scream again when the wind is knocked from me by 2 massive arms twining tightly around my chest. I'm dragged backwards, away from the light, away from my last hope of saving Yor. I tried desperately to scream again, but the arms around me squeeze tighter, leaving no room for my lungs to expand. I feel one of my ribs crack under the pressure, and stars begin to dance in my vision. Whether from oxygen deprivation or pain, I'm not sure. I can't even scream against the blinding, crushing pain. "You're going to die like the bug you are, human scum," says the orc in my ear. My vision begins to go dark at the edges. This is how I'm going to die, I realise, numbness flooding me at the thought. I taste blood, and then the suffocating pressure ceases. My lungs expand as my limp body falls from where the orc held me several feet in the air as he squeezed the life out of me. My fall is broken not by grass as I expected, but by a pair of warm, sticky arms. I blink my eyes, trying to force them to adjust. Yor's dark, honeyed eyes are staring back at me, his arms gently but firmly holding me to his chest. He's looking at me with such distress, such devastation, that I begin to cry anew. I cling to him as he carries me, sobbing openly against his chest. Despite all that's just happened, I've never felt as safe as I do right now.
Chapter 15. Her body feels different than I imagined it would in my arms. I caught her once before and knew there was something different about her, but fully carrying her pressed against my chest elicits a new reaction from me. All humans are weak compared to orcs, but something about Bonnie's warmth and the solidity to her supple form, even in an injured state, lends a constitution to her I didn't expect. I also never would have imagined this tiny human woman could elicit such a violent range of emotions in me. Fury, despair, desperation, relief. I don't know that I've ever felt so many things in such a short amount of time. Nowhere feels safe enough for me to take her, so I settle for the one place I know I'll have complete control over. My home. Other orcs and humans find us along the way, thanks to Bonnie's earlier cries for help. I'm unable to provide much in the way of context due to my single-minded focus on Bonnie, but thankfully little seems to be needed. One look at the dark orc blood covering me, and Bonnie's now unconscious form hanging limply in my arms tells any onlookers all they need to know. The orcs in Bonnie's house are found in pools of their own blood and apprehended before being brought to Loki. Other orcs take it upon themselves to corral the rest of the humans, reassuring them of Bonnie's safety while promising protection from those who may do the rest of them harm. I can't help but feel a swell of pride at the way my clan deals with this attack, An overwhelming sense of community permeates every individual action, despite the sense of a lurking evil in the shadows. I tuck Bonnie safely into my bed, hating the pallor washed over her porcelain skin. Flecks of dried blood mingle with the smattering of freckles that lay daintily across her cheekbones under large doe eyes. Beautiful, I find myself thinking as I drag my thumb gently across her cheek. She stirs at my touch, thick lashes fluttering before her eyes open slightly. Bonnie's lips part as if to say something before I interrupt her. "You're safe," I murmur, suddenly aware of how close I am to her. I shift away slightly to allow her some more breathing room and pull the covers up to her chin. "Sleep." The pleading in my voice surprises me. I'd intended the word to sound more like a command, but regardless, Bonnie's eyes flutter shut again. 2 orcs appear in my doorway shortly after Bonnie is asleep again, and I begrudgingly leave her side only after seeing a written order requesting my presence, signed by Loki. I suspect he knows I would not have come for anything less. By the time I get to the meeting hall, Loki, Irish, and several other council members are waiting outside. Even Inzo is here, looking sympathetic as he talks with his cousin. Orok is noticeably absent. My blood boils simply at the thought of him. If he has something to do with this, I'll kill him! I swear to myself. Loki is furious, pacing outside the doors of the hall, stopping short only as I arrive in front of the small group. I knew we would face adversity when it came to the humans, but this... I can't believe any member of this clan would defy their chief and attack their own people, Loki growls. I say nothing, not wanting to sling accusations for which I have no evidence. Loki's fury is only a fraction of my own feelings. The captured orcs are inside. Irish interjects, stopping Loki's tirade. My head whips towards him, and I feel the bloodlust begin to rage through my veins. The ones you left alive, that is, he adds mirthlessly. They'll be dealt with according to their willingness to cooperate. Loki says in a tone that discourages any argument. I know that this comment was directed more at me than anyone else, but this is one instance where I'm not sure I can abide by the orders of my chief. I follow the others inside and take my seat to the right of Loki as I survey the damage I inflicted on the 2 remaining orcs. They're bound tightly to chairs in the center of the room, placed before us like any other enemy of the clan. They say nothing as we take our seats in front of them, staring at the ground silently. Loki speaks first. "Do you have anything to say in defense of your crimes?" One of the orcs sneers in response to Loki's question, lifting his head so he can stare defiantly into the eyes of our chieftain. "The only crime that's been committed is the failure of our so-called chief," he spits. "You're weak, Loki. Humans are beneath all real orcs," he says, his eyes flying to Irish. "Human playthings like Irish's." His eyes slide to the silent orc on the other side of Loki, and Inzo's only have a place with the most pathetic of our kind. The sound of wood splintering silences the orc before us. Irish has crushed the arms of his chair between his fingers like they were nothing more than overripe fruits. But somehow, he manages to stay seated. Before Camille, Irish's madness would have spurred him to rip this orc to shreds. But now, his restraint rivals that of the best of us. Inzo, on the other hand, is on his feet, always less in control of his temper than anyone I've ever known, besides maybe Irish. His cousin grips his lame arm, still healing despite Alvin's help. It seems the damage is mostly irreparable. Inzo hisses, but he takes the command and sits. Interesting, I think to myself. "Your rhetoric isn't welcome here," Loki snaps, the force in his voice making the 2 orcs before us wince. "Tell us who you answer to." Both orcs stare up at us, making no move to answer. "This is your only opportunity to save your lives. Refuse it, and you refuse any sunrise hereafter." Neither orc makes a move. After a moment of silence, Loki stands. "Kill them," he orders, and the guards, lingering at the edge of the meeting hall, move in, grabbing the 2 orcs. Neither of them struggle as they're taken away. I survey Loki's face, noting the grim shadow that's fallen over his features. While Loki may be my chieftain, he is also my friend, and I know how heavily it weighs on him to forsake some of our own. "Everyone go home," We'll reconvene in the morning to deal with this newest threat, Loki says. We rise from our chairs in a heavy silence, filing out of the meeting hall as we head in our respective directions. Loki falls into step beside me as I make my way back to Bonnie, comfortable silence falling for a few moments as we walk. Who do you suspect? Loki asks quietly. We both know he already knows the answer. Orok is the only one of us who hates humans enough to do this. I don't have to tell Loki that he's also the only orc who's stupid or willful enough to openly defy him this way, believing his marriage to Loki's aunt will excuse any of his behavior. Loki nods thoughtfully, his expression drawn. Despite Orok's insistence on resisting Loki's leadership every step of the way, Loki is still lenient with his uncle. He sighs. It's certainly plausible. We'll have to look into it. Silence falls between us again as we approach my house. The fury that's been quietly churning inside me since rescuing Bonnie threatens to explode under the force of the crushing fear I feel at the idea of what could have happened tonight if I'd refused Bonnie's invitation. She would have been killed alone in that house, with no one there to help. And then any potential alliance with the humans would be soured, I tell myself, trying to blame my rising panic on a sense of duty to my clan. They need a bodyguard, I blurt out as we reach the entrance to my house. Loki turns to me, as surprised by my sudden outburst as I am. Bonnie and Alvin, they need a bodyguard, I repeat, trying to add some context to my previous statement. They're incredibly knowledgeable, and an alliance with the humans will crumble if any harm were to befall them. We have evidence of a plot against them, and against the rest of the humans, and no way of knowing who our enemy is or what their plans may be. Our hard work would be wasted if either were to die or become unable to fulfill their purpose. We need them to find a cure to ensure no more of our clan gets sick. I trail off, realizing Loki has been staring at me wordlessly throughout my tangent. I agree, he says slowly, eyeing me as though he's concerned about my health. Are you suggesting you take on this role? Loki follows dubiously. I can't help but bristle at his tone. And why not? I respond sharply. Loki throws his hands up in front of himself at my tone, as if to signal he means no harm. I just would not have imagined you for the role, he says, surprise lacing his tone. That being said, however, there is no one I trust more. I nod in response to his approval of my request, not trusting myself not to continue blathering. How strange that this event should have such an effect on me. I've fought through countless battles, and yet this one attack has an undeniable hold on me, I think to myself as Loki turns away from my door and heads home. I slip inside, the two orcs who'd been guarding Bonnie nodding at me as they excuse themselves. While they are admirable fighters, I'm more than capable of doing their job myself. And besides, it is well known that I appreciate my privacy. I find myself standing in my bedroom before I really understand what I'm doing. This human woman has me in some kind of gravitational headlock. I can't even be in the same structure as Bonnie without immediately finding myself by her side. She looks so peaceful when she sleeps, as if she was not almost killed mere hours ago. I brush a strand of dark hair from her eyes, unable to keep myself from touching her. Sleep well, Jamia. My lips curl up on the old term of endearment. It's rare to hear my native language these days. I'll protect you, I whisper to her. A small smile grows on her full lips at the sound of my voice, and I watch in awe as she leans into my touch in her unconscious state. Perhaps gravity is
Earth is pretty much a desolate wasteland since the orcs came over from Protheka, and being a woman, the best you can hope is to be someone's property. Now, after my curvy body catches Korthar's eye, he'll claim me, and I'll serve him, in any way he pleases.
You're mine now. Listen to this story and more when you get the complete Orc Warriors of Protheka audiobook and ebook bundle.
40 books, 19 audiobooks, 19 ebooks. You even get 1 free novella and 1 free audiobook.
all for a shocking 90% off.
Protheka's magic is eternal, and the complete Orc Warriors of Protheka bundle will bring over 100 hours of that magic to you. Chapter 16. Bonnie. I wake with a start, my heart pounding. Nothing around me looks familiar at all. Everything feels wrong. But it's one of those awakenings where I can barely remember my own name when I first gain consciousness. As the fog of heavy sleep fades, I soon remember my name's Bonnie, and I have the presence of mind to look around. As I see the simple furniture, I'm aware it's a man's place. But which man? I shake the last of the sleep from my head, and then feel a cold needle of dread in my heart as I remember I'm at yours. It's not staying with Yor that unnerves me. For a brief moment, the possibilities there are almost pleasant, but then the memories of last night come back to me. Someone tried to kill me. I'm here because Yor wanted to keep me safe. Though there is something in that thought that warms me. He's a good protector and has saved me twice so far. If there is one place I should feel safest, it's close to him. But even knowing that, it's going to take a minute before my heart rate returns to normal. I walk out of the bedroom and I follow the sound of conversation until I find Yor and another orc in the kitchen. Once I see the other orc is wearing glasses, I realise it's Vala. I still don't know if Vala actually needs the glasses. They weren't quite designed with an orc's facial features in mind, but he does look nice in them. Yor, on the other hand. "You can't be serious, you bastard," Vala says to Yor. "You've never cooked a day in your life." "I have cooked for myself plenty." "Cooking for yourself is different. I meant cooking for someone else. If you poison yourself, then there's no one to be mad at." The indignation in Vala's voice makes me giggle, and both orc men turn to look at me as I lean against the doorway. Yor's holding up a pan in one hand with something sizzling in it, and he turns, forcing Vala to step back to avoid getting burned. Vala looks shocked, but his expression soon changes, and his smug smile colours his tone as he says, "Be careful you don't burn yourself or your lovely house guests." Yor turns back to the stove, pokes at what he was cooking, and says to Vala, "Don't worry, when I hit you with a frying pan, it's going to be intentional." I find Yor's use of when rather than if an interesting choice, and I wonder how intentional it was. "Are you seeking to add another title to your name?" Vala smirks. "Yor, the giant, wielder of the searing frying pan." Vala gestures in the air like he can summon the words to float above Yor. I'm suddenly curious if that was a thing orcs could do in the past. Even if not, the image does make me laugh again. "I suppose it's better than Vala, wearer of glasses," Yor says, returning Vala's smirk. I don't know precisely the relationship between these two, but their bickering sounds like something between brothers or an old married couple. I step between the two orcs. "Okay, boys, settle down. I don't want to have to put either of you in a time-out," I say. Yor looks down at me in mock shock. "Ordering me around, in my own home?" But then he looks over my head at Vala and says, "You're giving her a bad impression of orc culture." I can see how Yor is more relaxed here, but it's been a trend in his behaviour since when we first met. Each interaction with him has been slightly more at ease. Well, other than when rescuing me the first and second time. But those weren't his fault, and if there was ever a time when it was beneficial to be standoffish, it would be during a standoff. "Yor, you saved my life twice, and the second time was when I was trying to make you dinner to thank you for the first time, so maybe I can try again and cook for you right now." "It's okay, Bonnie. I can handle this. I'm almost done. I lived by myself for a long time, and I've managed to keep myself fed for all those years." "So, what he's saying is he's unattached and can cook for you," Vala teases, really trying to sell himself as a potential mate. "Mate?" "Vala, as you can see, Bonnie is doing fine. I think it's time for you to leave," Yor says before putting down his utensils. Vala turns to me and says, He's bad at expressing himself. Yer interrupts him by seizing the skinny orc by the shoulders, lifting him off the ground, and carrying him to the door. Yes, time to leave. Have a good day, lovebirds. Yer snorts. Lovebirds. That guy gets on my nerves. I laugh, though I feel like it sounds a lot more nervous than I originally intended. Lovebirds? Yeah, sure. It seems unlikely. Yer mostly avoids me. The only times we've really interacted have been the fallout from his rescues. Not that I would be sad to find out he was interested. He's nice. There's that whole he saved my life multiple times thing, so he makes a good protector. And although I hadn't really thought of an orc in that way until I met him, he looks handsome, but it just doesn't seem very likely. Yer goes back to cooking and says, "You have a seat. These should be done soon." I don't know what these are, but I figure I'll find out soon enough. Then I can see if the years Yer spent by himself meant he was capable of actual cooking. Okay, I say, taking a seat at the kitchen table. But at some point I do want to actually cook you something. It really is the least that I can do after you saved my life twice over. Yer gives what I think is an affirmative grunt as he adds something, some kind of spice maybe, to the pan. The enormous orc isn't much of a conversationalist, but maybe that's because I haven't really gotten him to open up yet. He walks the pan over and puts what looks like a few small steaks on the plate in front of me. It smells good, and I realise I haven't eaten since lunch yesterday. And I want to tear into it, but instead I say, "Thank you," and wait until he's done serving himself and has sat down. I cut off a piece and put it in my mouth. It's a little shocking at first, because I don't know what I'm expecting it to taste like. It tastes good, especially with the way it's spiced, but I have no idea what it is. I finish chewing my bite and swallow. When I look up, Yer hasn't started eating yet. He's just watching me, probably trying to gauge my reaction. "It's very good," I say, cutting off the next piece. "What is it?" "Rabbit," he answers with a little nod before starting in on his. "I've never had it before, but I like this. Thank you." We eat in silence, which I'm actually thankful for because I'm so hungry. When I finish, I look at him, and I think I can see the faintest hint of a smile. I know how much I enjoy it when someone likes what I've cooked, so I can't blame him. "Thank you for breakfast, and thanks again for the rescues." "It's really nothing. I think it's a big deal. I'd be dead if not for you." "I'm just doing my job," he says, crossing his arms over his chest. "Is it really your job?" I ask. I guess it wasn't, but it is now. "What do you mean?" "Loki has assigned me to be your bodyguard." "My what?" I don't mean to sound ungrateful, but the shock loosens my lips. It's scary to need one, but to have Yer protecting me, being close gets my mind going.
Chapter 17. Yer. Bonnie's shocked expression isn't exactly the reaction I was hoping for, but at least this means that I'll have an excuse to be close to her, and I can keep her safe. Wait, no, that I can keep her safe and be close to her. Things are getting confusing with her, and maybe this isn't my best plan, but the priority needs to be her safety. "I'm sorry if you don't want me as your bodyguard, but you need one," I say. "Oh no, it's not that I don't want a bodyguard." "Is it just me then?" Her face flushes, and I try to maintain my composure, something that is becoming increasingly difficult around her. But then after a few stuttering starts, "No, it's not that I don't want you as a bodyguard. I don't want to need one. Am I really in that much danger that I need someone watching over me all the time? We haven't caught whoever orchestrated the attack. The ones that attacked you are scheduled to be executed." "Executed?" I thought she was shocked before. I was wrong. I've learned that humans can go pale when frightened or surprised, but Bonnie's skin is so milk-white already that I didn't think it was possible. But as the warmth from the undertones in her skin fades, she looks almost gray. They betrayed the clan by attacking someone under our protection. We can't let them live. Imprisoning them means that they have a chance to escape, perhaps with the help of others, or that we have to feed them when they do nothing to contribute to the clan. A quick death is better than just letting them starve. It seems strange to have to explain this. It just seems the most logical thing to me. But as mixed up as my feelings have become, I need to remember that she's still a human. She's grown up among humans. Her values are going to be a little different. So then why am I drawn to her? I quickly shoved that thought aside. I need to focus on what I'm doing. What am I doing? Bonnie sits there a moment, staring down at the table. I didn't think it would be that distressing to learn the people that tried to kill you are being dealt with accordingly. I need to recover this conversation somehow. If that upsets you, we don't have to talk about it, I say. But it's not your fault. These are our ways, and you did nothing wrong. Oh no, it's not that. I mean, it's not just that. But thank you. And I know I didn't do anything, but it was just a bit worrisome that someone would still try to attack, knowing that the punishment was death. Do they really hate humans that much? I don't know, they haven't been willing to give us anything useful. But until we get to the bottom of this, I'm going to be by your side all the time. I won't let anything happen to you. Bonnie nods slowly, like she's still absorbing the situation. I've spent so much of my life in battle that the thought of someone trying to kill me isn't that distressing. I'd grown up knowing that battle would be my fate, so I was prepared. It's difficult for me to comprehend what it's like for the idea someone might try to kill you to be so jarring. So if we are going to be spending more time together, maybe we should get to know each other a bit more. Is there anything I should avoid doing? I guess what I'm asking is, how do I not become a burden to you? You aren't a particularly burdensome person, Bonnie. Damning with faint praise, she says, before breaking into laughter. Recovering her breath, she continues, I just thought you weren't all that fond of humans. That brings me up short. I'm not sure what I can do here. What am I even doing here? I thought I didn't like any humans. You've proved me wrong, and your grandfather. You are both kind and compassionate caretakers. We're not the only halfway decent humans on the planet. You're the nicest ones I know, I say. What makes you avoid us? I have to stop and think about that for a moment. I suppose it's just because that's the way it was for such a long time. Humans and orcs were at war. I'm a warrior. You don't tend to spend a lot of downtime with the people you're trying to kill because they are trying to kill you. And now? And now what? Do you plan to still avoid humans? I wouldn't make a very effective bodyguard if I avoided humans, I say, standing to grab the dishes. She holds on to hers and says, Please let me at least wash up after. I want to feel useful. You can still be useful. I'm not going to make you a prisoner here. You can continue your work at the clinic. I'll just be there with you, to make sure you're safe. Useful to you? I still feel like I owe you. Why? Because you saved my life. You're a doctor. A healer. Right? Do you expect everyone who you ever healed to owe you a debt of gratitude for forever? Bonnie opens her mouth, ready to object, but then she closes it and furrows her brow. Then she lets go of her plate. It feels different somehow. That's my job, she says, almost pouting. Even before I was ordered to be your bodyguard, protecting you was my job, I say as I put the dishes in the sink. You're part of the clan now and therefore under our protection. I'm a warrior. It's what I do. I'm not a warrior to kill, but to protect the people in my clan. Yes, I want to prove myself in combat, but I don't kill people for the sake of killing. She looked at me with her head cocked to the side, regarding me as though it was the first time she saw me. Okay, I think I'm starting to understand you, but I'd still like to cook for you at some point. That will be all right. Let me finish washing up. You get ready to go. I'll need clothes from my place. I'll go with you then. I need to keep an eye on you. Bonnie's eyes go wide, and I realize just how that sounded. Not literally all the time. It's just we already know your house isn't safe, I add quickly. I don't want you to be unprotected. Part of me wants to keep explaining that I wasn't talking about literally watching her get undressed, but I think the more I deny it, the more it would sound like that's what I wanted. And the problem is starting to be that I do want it. The way she affects me is getting more intense. I keep trying to fight it. I judged Irish so harshly for the way he was with Camille, but I start to wonder if I've been too quick to cast aside a friend and ally because of what his heart wanted. It felt like he was betraying our people, but perhaps I was wrong. I never said it out loud to him, but I feel like I owe him an apology for the way I thought. But that doesn't mean I have to give in as he had. I realize after a moment that Bonnie is just staring at me as I debate with myself. I'll finish washing the dishes and then we'll go. There's a bag in the room you were in. If you grab it, we can put some clothes and other things in it, so this doesn't have to be a regular trip we make. I don't want to take predictable routes every day. You really put a lot of thought into this, she says. Yes, I must...
Chapter 18. Bonnie. We get to my house, and the signs of struggle are still there. Ugly reminders of why I need Ur around. We go up to my room, and it's more of a mess. But it doesn't take me long to find some clothes to wear today. With some help from Ur, I managed to find some stuff that hadn't been damaged too severely. It's a little awkward asking him to help me find bras and underwear, especially when I have to explain what a bra is. But he's got a good eye. When we're done, I have enough clothes to last me a little while, though I'm dangerously low on pants. It won't be so bad, but with the winter still looming on the horizon, I can't imagine what I have is going to suffice. I do need to change, I say nervously. I could have just started changing, and the thought does make me feel flush, but I don't quite have the gumption to try that out. He turns his back to me but doesn't leave the room. I suppose it's probably for the best, but I'm acutely aware of how close he is while I'm undressed. I notice my reflection in the mirror, but I see that he's angled himself away from it. I don't know if it's gentlemanly, or if he has no desire to see me naked. Once I'm all set, we walk to the clinic and I start my day. After that, we settle into a pattern fairly easily. With no more detours in the morning, I'm able to get dressed by myself at his place. True to his word, we take different winding routes to work every day. It gives us more chances to talk as I just let him decide which turns we take. The other orcs I meet on the street or in the clinic are nothing but kind to me, but Ur stays ever vigilant, ever by my side. We still can't figure out who ordered the attack. That seems to cause Ur the most distress. I can't tell if it's because he cares for my safety or just wants to be free of me, and I doubt that I'll be allowed to go anywhere without him for a while. I don't know if it's duty and honour that makes him so dedicated or something else, but Ur has become my long shadow. I opt not to attend the public execution of the orcs that attacked me. From the way he reacted that first morning, I half expected Ur to object, but he doesn't. I'm not the one that needs to learn the lesson. Watching them die is pointless for me. I do get chances to cook for him, and he seems to like it, though I don't know if he'd tell me if he didn't. I'm surprised by how kind and gentle he can be. He's often silent, but then when he does speak, he can be really insightful or funny. Even after a while, it still surprises me when he busts out a joke. He seems so serious and stoic most of the time. I don't know if it's just because he doesn't talk much, but he does make a great listener, and it's not just passive. He nods along and asks questions. He's interested in what I'm saying, or at least appears to be. Every now and then, I catch him looking at me a certain way. I've gotten used to feeling his eyes on me. He watches over me all the time, but there are moments when it feels less like he's keeping me in sight at all times to keep me safe, and it seems more like he's checking me out. But he hasn't said a word about anything, and it's starting to drive me nuts. Sometimes it feels like he's treating me like I'm something special, and I'm trying really hard not to get my hopes up that there's something there. I don't want to convince myself that he has feelings for me just because I want him to. And I can no longer deny that I want him to. Badly. Every day he's there with me at the clinic. I do end up having to draft him into playing nurse for me a couple times, but he does an excellent job at following instructions, and I can't say that I mind having him work close to me. At first it's because he makes me feel safe, but as the memory of the attack starts to fade, it really begins to evolve into just liking having him nearby. After a while, I've all but forgotten that's why I'm staying with him in the first place. I've spent way too much time trying to figure out a subtle way to test the waters. I'm living at his house. We're in close proximity all the time. All it would take is just one little oops to see how he reacts. Leaving a door open when I'm getting undressed, or showering, or getting myself off to the thought of him. But every time I'm about to do something, I chicken out at the last minute. As much as I want him to want me, I sort of only want to know if it's true, if it's a yes. It's risky, especially considering that he is my bodyguard. If I say or do something that he really doesn't like, he might feel the need to have someone else take his place. As mysterious as his motivations may be, I do feel very safe around him. Then one day, after a couple weeks of me trying and failing to figure out how to gauge his desire to do something more intimate, one of my human patients, a woman, wanted to discuss something with me in private. Yor said he'd wait just outside. The way he looked at the woman, I'm not sure if he would have left if she were an orc. It's a strange reminder of why he's here. To protect me if another orc tries to attack me. When I'm done, I step out, and Yor is talking with Irish. Irish and Camille are in my thoughts more and more lately. They are an example of what I want. An orc and a human madly, passionately in love. I see the way Irish looks at Camille, and I wonder if Yor were slightly less stone-faced if it would mean he'd look at me like that. Or is it a look you earn only after you've screwed each other's brains out? Which I'm more than willing to experiment with if I can ever figure out what Yor is actually thinking when it comes to us. Irish nods at me and walks off. Everything okay? I ask Yor. Yes, everything's fine. Are you okay? Yeah, just a patient who wanted privacy. Nothing to be concerned about. That's good. I hope it isn't something too serious. She'll be fine. He knows not to dig further. Before I let him into the clinic with me, we had a talk about confidentiality, which in hindsight seems funny since my problem has been getting Yor to say anything. Why he'd waste his limited words on gossiping about a patient's medical history is beyond me. Good. Irish was just telling me he heard about a waterfall discovered nearby in the forest. It's supposed to be quite a sight. It's about an hour's ride from here, but that would be an hour away from other people and not something anyone would expect. Seems like the best way to keep you safe for a little bit. And there it is. A strange reminder that his spontaneity is about throwing off potential attackers. But I'm more than willing to take the excuse to go on an outing with him. Perhaps this hidden natural beauty is my chance to test the waters.
Chapter 19. Yor! Riding with Bonnie is pleasant. I just like listening to her talk, especially when it's something she's passionate about. She gets very excited and animated. The whole thing is cute, and I'm realizing more and more how infatuated with her I've become. Medicine is often a topic she likes to talk about. She talks about some of the history of human medicine, especially the parts where people discovered something new that changed everything. It was a little off-putting to learn how resistant human doctors were to washing their hands, but not all of it makes me want to cringe. And it's amazing how sometimes the smallest things lead to huge breakthroughs, like the discovery of penicillin. Her words are cut off as we come around the bend and see the waterfall. It really is a wonder to behold. The water cascades off the mountain, splashing on the rocks that jut out from the side, sending out a fine mist that shines in all the colors of the rainbow. Whoa, I breathe. Yeah, is all Bonnie can say. After a minute of just watching, she asks, "How many rainbows do you see?" I count 3. "At least 4, I reply, pointing to the faintest one off to the left. How can there be so many captured in one place? Captured? Bonnie looks at me oddly for a moment. Do you know how rainbows are made? Not really. The waterfall makes them. The mist refracts the sunlight into the full spectrum of colors. Bonnie goes off talking about the electromagnetic spectrum or something like that. Visible light. Prisms. This is what happens when your society forms without magic. It seems that humans have studied everything, including something as seemingly insignificant as what makes rainbows. If the answer has never really been magic, then it means searching for the answers. The curiosity is endearing, or at least seems that way with Bonnie. Though, even knowing the science behind it, I'd still call this place a miracle, she says. It's wonderful. Thank you for bringing me here. She dismounts and walks to the edge of the water. Though all this fog can't just be from the water getting churned up, she says, as she bends down and touches the water. Oh, it's warm. Did Irish know this was a hot spring? He didn't mention it. I look up to the top of the waterfall again, watching the spray. When my eyes come back to the edge of the water, I realize Bonnie has pulled off her shirt and is only wearing her black bra on top. She bends again, this time pulling her pants down to her ankles. Standing there with only her white underwear, only partially covering her backside, I'm seeing a lot more of her creamy white skin than I ever have before. I turn away quickly, though the image of her standing there is burned into my brain. I thought the falls would be the most stunning thing I saw today. I'm glad I was wrong. I shake the thought away, but heat already crawls up my skin. I'm going to, walk the perimeter, just to make sure it's safe. Do you think we were followed? She asks from behind me. I don't know if she's taken anything else off, but I will myself not to turn and look at her. I'm afraid I'll never be able to look away again if I do. No. We cut across that field before getting to the woods. If someone was following us, we would have seen them. So, then, there's no need to be so paranoid. You said coming out here was a good idea because it'd be safer. Would you, want to join me for a swim? I don't know if I should. I wouldn't want to make you uncomfortable. Why do you think it would make me uncomfortable? I just thought since you didn't want me to see you in your underwear before... Oh, that was when I was changing. That's different. How so? It just is. Besides, I'm not going to swim in all my clothes, am I? Humans swim in stuff like this all the time. I'm suddenly curious how many humans have seen that much of Bonnie, and I can't help but feel jealous and maybe a little possessive. I take a deep breath and turn back, startling a little when I realize she walked closer to me at some point, and she's wearing even less. I was too distracted thinking about her in her underwear or less to be paying enough attention to hear her footsteps. This is dangerous. She's very tempting, very distracting, and now she's ditched the bra as well, only wearing a small pair of underwear. I'm not sure where to look now, but my eyes keep being drawn back to her chest with each breath she takes. Then I decide the best place to look is at the ground. You go ahead and swim. I'll stay here just in case anyone shows up. Then her hand brushes my chin as she tries to lift my gaze. I relax and let my eyes trail up her body. Her face and chest are flushed red, but she doesn't look embarrassed. What if there's something dangerous in the water? I'll need you to protect me, Please join me. If she's asking me to join, then it has to be okay, right? She's suddenly not shy about her body. Somehow swimming is supposed to be different. I'm not sure how human logic works, but I'm not going to argue. She's smarter than me anyway. I'll just take her word for it. All right, I say, peeling off my shirt. She gives my bare chest a quick up and down, and then turns and walks into the water. Was she looking the same way I was looking, lustfully? I strip down to just my pants, which are feeling very confining at the moment, but if wearing just bottoms is the way I'm supposed to do this, they'll stay on. I join her in the water. It is very warm, and once a little of the novelty of seeing Bonnie's chest fades, I actually start to relax. Though that calm falters when she stands on a tall rock in the middle of the spring, and I see that the water has made the white fabric of her underwear nearly see-through, enough that I can clearly see the tuft of hair between her legs. I tear my eyes away from her, looking to shore instead. Yep, our mounts are still where we left. So are our clothes. Then I hear a splash. I turn around just in time to see her feet disappear under the surface of the water. Then I wait. Then wait. I thought she'd surface quickly, but she doesn't. My heart starts to pound hard and fast. I swim over to where I saw her go under. I dive down, but I can't see very far in the water. I surface and yell, "Bonnie!" Then I feel her arms wrap around me from behind. I go stone still for a second, but then start kicking again when I realize I'm sinking. "Boo," she whispers in my ear and giggles. "Don't laugh. You had me scared there for a moment." "I'm sorry," she says. I feel her move around to the side of me, realizing her naked chest had been pressed into my back and are now sliding across my arm as she circles to the front of me. "Can you forgive me?" she asks when we're face to face. My heart is pounding, but it's no longer the rush caused by the thought Bonnie might be in danger. She's so close and so naked. She's breathing hard, but I suspect it's no longer recovering from her dive underwater. "That depends," I say. "On what?" "If I can kiss you." She leans into me and our lips meet for the first time.
Chapter 20. Bonnie. The first brush of our lips is tentative. Even though I'm the one who closed the most distance between us, it's like he's unsure of this. Despite his size, he's surprisingly gentle. And it's sweet, it really is. But I'm not in the mood for him to be this gentle. When I nip his bottom lip with my teeth, I think he takes the hint, and our kiss deepens as I press my body into his, feeling how solid he is. Weeks' worth of anticipation has built up to this moment, and I'm feeling so desperate. This hadn't really been the plan. The original plan had been to fall in, get wet, need to dry my clothes, something like that. But then I discovered how warm the water was, and it had been so long since I'd been for a swim. So I took the opportunity. I still hadn't been brave enough to go completely naked.
"Sorry for the interruption. I know you were gearing up for a steamy scene, but it's way too hot for this platform."
If we want to keep sharing our stories for free, we have to abide by this platform's guidelines.
To get the full unabridged audiobook, go to worldsofprotheka.com.
Browse through unabridged audiobooks, countless ebooks and bundles offered at a discount.
If the thought of me whispering all the dirty details into your ear isn't enticing enough, use discount code YouTube30 to get 30% off of all digital products.
Story after story, audiobook after audiobook, the worlds of Protheka are waiting for you.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
But unabridged, it's unforgettable.
Chapter 21. By the time we get back to the city, Bonnie seems very on edge. She looks almost red by the time we get to the gate, the flush of hers turning her skin crimson. We rush home, and I'm not sure if people on the street notice anything different or not, but once the front door closes behind us, Bonnie whips off her shirt and leaps into my arms. Using one hand to support her, I use the other to alternately caress her body or open doors. As much as Samara and I want to finish what these two characters have started, it looks like this chapter is about to get too hot for this platform to handle.
Unfortunately, we have to pause here because their guidelines won't allow us to reveal the spiciest details.
To keep bringing you these free audiobooks, we have to follow their rules.
But don't worry. You can experience the full, unabridged version over at worldsofprotheka.com, where the boundaries of passion and fantasy collide.
Use code YouTube30 for 30% off any of our unabridged audiobooks set in the rich and immersive worlds of Protheka.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
With these scenes, it will be unforgettable.
Chapter 22. Bonnie. Birdsong slowly lulls me back to consciousness, and it takes me a moment to realise I'm not alone in my bed. Yur's arm is still wrapped sweetly around me, as if he can't bear to be away from me even in slumber. I roll gently back into him, nuzzling my head into where his shoulder meets his chest. I don't want to wake him, but I wouldn't mind seeing those amber eyes right about now. I smile softly to myself as memories of last night dance across my closed eyelids. I'd expected my first time to be painful, after all I'd heard from other women, especially given Yur's size, but it was surprisingly palatable. More than palatable, it was perfect. He was perfect. Yur's tenderness has always been one of my favourite qualities of his, even if few truly get to appreciate it, but last night proved that he carries that quality in spades. Truly, I don't know how or why I held out for this long. I open my eyes again, taking in the soft, happy feeling of the room around us. Early morning sunlight filters through the gauzy curtains, creating a warm glow that dances over the walls and bedspread, casting sleepy shadows in the corners. Yur's skin glows under the touch of dawn, and I prop myself up to get a better view of him. His angular features seem softened somehow by sleep, the proud curve of his jaw and high cheekbones almost angelic. I press feather-light kisses along his jaw and am overtaken by the scent of wet earth and storm clouds emanating from his bare skin. The smell of him stokes an ache between my legs that's entirely different from any lingering soreness. I feel a wicked grin take shape on my lips as I remember a book I once read. I've always been a voracious reader, but before I spent all of my time buried in medical textbooks, romance was my favourite.
This scene is about to get too steamy for this platform's comfort. As much as we'd love to keep going, their guidelines say we need to stop here.
To continue releasing these free audiobooks on this platform, we've got to play by the rules.
The passion doesn't end here.
Visit worldsofprotheka.com to hear the full, uncut version of this fantasy romance, and every daring moment that YouTube can't handle.
Use code YouTube30 for 30% off unabridged audiobooks in the Worlds of Protheka.
Don't let YouTube hold you back. Immerse yourself in a world of magic, danger, and unfiltered passion.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
Listen unabridged and you'll never want to go back. The second my head hits the pillow, Yur has rolled to caress my cheek while he studies my face, a satisfied smile playing on his lips. "What?" I ask, suddenly feeling shy as I wipe the drool off my chin. He grins and leans forward to kiss me so deeply that it leaves me breathless. "You are just full of surprises," murmurs as he pulls away, kissing the tip of my nose lightly before pulling me closer against his side. I snuggle into him, tracing lazy circles over his bare chest with my fingers. "I love you, Bonnie." The seriousness in Yur's tone makes me look up at him. "I meant every word I said last night. You are someone I want to share my life with, not just my bed. Vala told me that it can be important to some humans to receive the approval of a patriarch before a formal proposal is made, so I'd like to visit your grandfather today." White-hot pricks sting my eyes as I look up at Yur. Hearing the words, "I love you," fall from his lips is victory enough, but to know that he's been thinking about our future long enough and cares enough to consult with Vala over human traditions. The thought pushes the tears down my face as I smile up at him. "I'd love to," I tell him happily. "And I love you too." It doesn't take us long to make our way to the clinic. Grandpa has been staying there almost exclusively since the attack a few weeks ago, citing that he has much to learn from the shaman and that there's simply too much work to be done for him to stay away. In truth, I think that our work at the clinic has made him feel useful, and I think that Grandpa picked up on the intricacies of Yur and I's relationship long before either of us. I don't blame him for preferring to stay far away from the sexual tension floating between us. Yur's hand has not left mine since we left the house, a gesture that I'm sure is equal parts affection and anticipation. Yur would never admit it, but he is the biggest softy I've ever met, and I can feel the nerves rolling off of him in waves. Grandpa notices the gesture immediately when we enter the clinic, but says nothing as we approach. I insisted to Ur on the way over that I speak first. After all, while Ur may want my grandfather's blessing, he'd never give it without knowing how I feel first. My grandfather has always treated me exactly as I am, a person, with the autonomy to choose for herself. If he knows I love Ur, he'd never deny us his blessing. Grandpa listens carefully to everything I tell him, from our story to Ur's various acts of heroism, and finally, the way that I feel about him. Ur listens too, his emotions as plain as day on his face as he hears in plain terms exactly what he means to me and who he is to me. By the time I'm done, Grandpa's face is wet with tears of joy. "My dear girl," he cries as he embraces me tightly. "There is nothing so precious in this world as true love, and I am overjoyed that you found it. I love you, Bonnie, and would never deny such a wonderful union my blessing," Grandpa says as he grins at me. Then he turns to Ur. "And you, Ur, you cannot do better than Bonnie. Take care of her." "With my life," Ur replies solemnly. Grandpa pitches forward suddenly, wrapping what little of Ur he can in a hug, as fierce and warm as the one he gave me. Once Ur recovers from the shock of the embrace, he smiles warmly, returning his gesture. Just when I think my heart is full to bursting, the door to the clinic slams open. The three of us start before the shaman enters frantically. "There's more!" he cries breathlessly as he begins to ransack the nearby cabinet for supplies. "More?" Ur demands, straightening to his full height as he readies to protect his clan, all softness forgotten. "More of what?" "More berserk orcs by the training area. There's too many." Ur takes off immediately after hearing berserk, not waiting for the shaman to even finish her sentence. I glance frantically between Ur and my grandfather, hesitating. "Go, go," my grandfather says, shooing me out the door. "Stay with him, but be careful, Bonnie." He cries after me as I run out of the clinic. It takes me longer than Ur to reach the training area, but not by much. What I see stops me dead in my tracks. A dozen orcs, maybe more, have been lost to the strange madness that's plagued this clan. Even against some of Burning Sun's best warriors, the berserk have the advantage of pure, animalistic rage. Even the kindest of them bear no recognisably sentient features. And the others are doing their best, but they can't hold out against this for long. How could this have happened?
Chapter 23. My body screams as I drag yet another one of my brothers towards the temporary holding facility we've created for those afflicted by the madness. He kicks and claws at where I hold him behind his neck, yowling and screeching as I haul him towards the enclosure. 2 orcs are waiting for us, each of them grabbing the infected orc by an arm the moment I'm close enough to hand him off, narrowly avoiding his frenzied blows. They hold on to him only long enough to throw him through the doorway of the building, before slamming the heavy metal door shut behind him. For reasons we don't yet understand, none of the afflicted seem to be interested in attacking one another, which makes this containment facility possible. It would be easier to knock him over the head, rendering him unconscious and conserving my strength for the rest of this uphill battle, I think to myself as I jog back towards the sounds of violence echoing from the training area. But I can't find it in me to risk injuring or killing one of my own. Fighting my own brothers is almost as bad as watching them fall in battle at the hands of an enemy. We've lost 15 orcs to the outbreak of the berserking illness at the training arena this afternoon, although we've only managed to secure 8 of them, counting the one I just dropped off. Some of our clansmen seem to believe that the presence of humans is causing the madness. Some even going so far as to cite Irish's madness and his involvement with Camille as evidence of the stupid theory. The very idea of such a thing makes my blood boil. That theory is exactly the kind of thinking that caused those orcs to attack Bonnie and nearly take her life. I think darkly as I begin to approach the training area. I drop myself into a warrior's crouch, moving quickly but quietly as I look around for any signs of infected orcs as I approach the heart of the conflict. The first hour of the struggle was brutal. but we somehow manage to avoid killing the infected members of our clan, which grows increasingly more difficult as we fight more of them. The illness lends them a primal ferocity that even the best warriors have trouble contending with, and a lack of control means fatalities. I don't have time to linger on the grim thought as I see the source of the commotion. Yurish and a few others are doing their best to contain the remaining 8 orcs, all of whom are in various states of psychosis. Yurish is locked in a dangerous embrace with one of the ill orcs, struggling to hold his ground. I shout, distracting the infected orc long enough for Irish to land a crushing blow to the back of his head. Yurish's blow would have knocked out any normal orc, but instead, his strike only serves to disorient the orc. I rush in, taking advantage of the lull in the orc's mania, and grab one of the orc's arms while Irish grabs the other. "This behavior is all too familiar," Irish grunts as we struggle to drag the orc away from the fighting toward a more controlled area. "Then there must be something you can tell us to help fix it, or at least to help incapacitate them while they're in this state," I respond through gritted teeth. We manage to get the orc to another set of warriors waiting on the outskirts of the battle. They'll get him to the holding area while we return to the fight to try and help contain the others. "It's the same, but different," Irish pants as we jog in tandem back towards the others. All of the symptoms are there, but there's no trigger. I always lose control before slipping into this kind of state, whether it's because of my temper or the threat of violence. "Left," I motion, and we change directions quickly to intercept another ill orc who was heading for the human residential area. These orcs are fine, though. There's nothing obvious that sets them off to put them in this state. They're acting like themselves, normal, going about their lives, and then all of a sudden, they devolve into animals, Irish says as he picks sticks up off of the ground. He bangs them together, the sound echoing off the buildings around us. The infected orc's head snaps towards us, and then he launches himself into a wild sprint toward us, foaming at the mouth as he howls. I want to cringe at the sight, but I know now is not the time. When this is taken care of, when Bonnie is safe, I will allow myself the time to feel anything outside of the protective instinct that drives me in battle. Yurish and I flank the maddened orc, acting out one of the countless battle drills we trained in as younglings. While orcs are proud, solitary warriors, we are also deeply attached to our clan, which means we know how to fight like a clan. Yurish's leg lashes out so fast that it's a blur, sending the infected orc flying headfirst into me. I'm ready for the impact, letting the force of the orc knock me onto my back while I tuck my feet under the orc's hips. Just as my back hits the ground, I extend my legs with nearly all of my force, sending the orc rocketing back into the air as I spring lightly to my feet. The orc's impact with the ground shakes the earth, and before he's able to right himself from the savage collision, Irish and I are upon him. 2 more orcs are behind us, ready to take the dazed infected away from the fighting. The system of handoffs was Alvin's idea, and it served us well in fighting our brethren. It keeps our warriors from being overwhelmed, while simultaneously allowing for an inventory of the infected and treatment of their wounds whenever possible. Wayrish and I turn back towards the training arena as the sounds of battle turn frantic. We spare a concerned glance at one another before taking off at full speed towards the heart of the conflict. Sweat drips from every pore, my body aching, but we push hard until we reach the edge of the arena. What we see makes my blood turn cold. 6 infected orcs remain, and given that they each fight with the strength of 3 orcs, we are quickly losing the battle against them. Only a dozen of our warriors are still standing, the rest too heavily injured to be of much assistance. "Pair off!" I roar as Yirish and I charge into the thick of the struggle, trying to draw the attention of as many infected orcs as possible to give our men time to adjust. "Remember, they are your brothers. Incapacitate, do not kill," I shout as I drop my shoulder to meet the body of an infected orc who charged me. The orc bounces off of my shoulder, losing balance for long enough that Yirish is able to knock him out. Our warriors struggle to adapt to my orders, but the infected are too strong. I realize we may very well have to resort to killing our own people to win this fight, and my stomach leadens. I'm locked into battle with one of the larger infected, shoving him back and away from the others the best that I can, when a familiar voice rings through the arena that threatens to stop my heart entirely. It's the water! They put something in the water! Bonnie screams frantically as she struggles with a water jug, and then every infected orc in the arena narrows in on her.
Chapter 24. Bonnie. The training yard is absolute chaos as berserk orcs are trying their best to murder their clanmates. I'm worried about Yor, even though part of me knows, even outnumbered like this, my lover is strong enough to handle this, as long as it doesn't continue to spread. Irish, behind you! Yor yells as he swings a blunted sword at one of his attackers. He doesn't want to kill these people. He wants to save them, to protect them. I have to help, but I'm not a warrior. I can't fight alongside Yor. I'd be more of a liability at his side than a help. He's the warrior. I'm the doctor, the scientist. I have to use my head. What could have caused this? I start going over everything I know about these attacks. Even as the battle rages, I try to calm my mind and focus. Someone has been spreading rumours that it's the human presence that caused this the first time. There are anti-human fanatics willing to do this to try to get rid of me, Grandpa, and any other human because they see us as a threat. It's a vague answer of who and why. They, whoever they are, hate humans and want us gone at best. If they're willing to do this to their clanmates, I'm sure they wouldn't blink at the idea of slitting all our throats. They already sent people after me. They think these episodes can be used as proof that we are a danger to the clan. The what and how are elusive. What is happening and how? If it's magic, I'm screwed. I have no idea how magic works, so I'm going to operate on the assumption that it isn't magic and just hope I'm right. Not the most scientific process of elimination, but since I can't do anything about spells and curses, I need to focus on the possibilities where I might be able to do something. This all happened during training. I look around the training yard, trying to think if anything here could have also been present before any of the other attacks. Words and ideas start to swirl around my mind. It's like I know the answer, but my brain has to catch up with my instincts. Poison, or a drug. These aren't naturally occurring, but how would you dose this many people? I scan the yard, looking for a source. The books that burned swim into my mind. Medical histories, case studies. So much was lost in that fire set by the raiders, but even if they hadn't, I wouldn't have the time to read them now. But what do I remember? Airborne, bloodborne, waterborne, different vectors. If they were breathing it in, Yor and Irish might be affected by now, and not everyone in the training yard has gone nuts. I watch as some of the orcs from the other side of the yard help Yor try to subdue berserker orcs. They don't want to kill them. The crazed orcs don't have the same worries. It's making this a bit of an unfair fight. Those orcs aren't affected. Sweat trickles down my temple. I'm nervous, but it's also hot. They'd all be hot and thirsty from training. A water jar and drinking gourd sit on the far side of the yard. I look on this end with all the berserk orcs and see an identical one, 2 water sources, 1 affected group. I'm suddenly reminded of the medical histories I read. The 1854 Broad Street cholera outbreak. 1 contaminated pump was to blame. A doctor shut off the pump and the outbreak stopped. Water. It could be the water. I sneak over to the jar and look inside. It's almost empty. I lift the gourd and sniff at the water. It could smell off, or it could just be that I'm under a lot of stress. I scoop some water into the gourd and dip my finger in, tasting a tiny bit. The jar is almost empty, so I figure they had to drink quite a bit before it took effect. The water has a bitterness to it. Yor, it's the water. They put something in the water. That's when several of the berserk orcs turn to me. I regret being so excited about finding the source, or at least what I think is a source. I have to test it. I seize the water jar. It's heavy, but I can get it to the clinic. I hear a roar and see the orcs closing in on me. I start to run to the clinic. The remaining water sloshing around in the bottom of the jar throws me off balance a little, and I almost drop it. I stop to steady myself and see orcs after me with weapons raised. Perhaps this wasn't my best plan. Then out of nowhere, Ur rushes in and slams into the side of the closest orc. Struggling with his target, he growls, "Get out of here, Bonnie." This place is too dangerous. I grit my teeth. I'm not a fighter, I'm a scientist. I can test the water and maybe isolate what is causing it, develop a treatment. That's how I help. Turning away from Ur, I hope I'm doing the right thing. Even as it pains me, I run away from him, leaving him to fend for himself. I'm thankful for all the winding paths Ur took me on to get to the clinic. Thanks to him, I have a much better idea of how everything is laid out. I'm able to lose the last of my pursuers after making several turns, and then I hurry to the clinic. I'm almost there when I see Grandpa and Bashag talking. They both stop and look at me, confused. The berserking orcs in the training yard. I think their water was contaminated with something. Please, someone take this and help me get it to the clinic for testing. Bashag takes the jar, and I nearly collapse. Grandpa keeps me on my feet as we jog the rest of the way to the clinic. "What makes you think it was the water?" asks Grandpa. I don't know if it was water for the first attack, but at the training yard, only some of the trainees were affected. Most of them are on one side of the yard. The water seemed off, tasted bitter. "You tasted it. Are you feeling okay?" he asks. "Yes, it was only a small sample. I wasn't going to carry that whole jar out of there on just a hunch I got from reading one of your old books." "My books?" "Yeah, the one on cholera." "Well, Doctor, Snow didn't go sampling the water himself. Can we just get to the clinic? I'm fine." Grandpa continues to eye me, concerned, until we get to the clinic. Once inside, Bashag sets down the jar on the counter. Then Camille and her little sister, Ivory, step in. The little girl holds a small plant in her hands. "What's that?" Grandpa asks. "This is the herb that we use to make Irish's medicine," says Camille. "The one that treats his battle madness. The episodes sound so similar we thought this might help treat those affected." Grandpa holds up the herb, examining it. "How's the medicine administered?" he asks. "I've made it into pills," Bashag says, "but I doubt that will work with affected orcs. We'll have to make it something we can force into them. I doubt they'll just politely swallow pills for us." "Well, we need to do something. We can't just leave those orcs like that," Grandpa says. "Do you think it will help?" Ivory asks. "I hope so," I say. My parents sold me to the dark market.
I am the avatar of chaos, and nothing will stop me from fulfilling the prophecy.
Looks like you're the only one left. Take a step forward.
It's her. She's the woman from the prophecy. My key to godhood.
This is Delia. Starting price is 3 ducats.
You will wed soon and restore the Enoch family name.
Okay. I'll lower it down even more. 2 ducats. Who wants to buy Delia for 2 ducats?
She is my mate. Destiny has foretold it.
You don't know anything about me, and you want me to marry you?
You're nothing but a human toy to be used and discarded.
Hold on. How about 1 ducat? Does anyone want her?
A gilded cage is still a cage.
6 ducats. 6 ducats for Delia. I'll give you revenge on your parents if you marry me.
Okay, I'll marry you.
Godhood is mine for the taking. Chapter 25. I block an incoming blow with the blunted sword I picked up from the ground. There's an opening. My attacker, in his fury, overswung, and I could stab him in the heart so easily, even without an edge to my weapon. But he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't deserve to die. For some reason, his blade still looks sharp, though. If Bonnie's right, and whoever did this put something in the water, they must have put sharpened blades in the hands of these soldiers at some point. When I find out who did this, I'm going to tear them in two, burn their remains, and piss on the ashes. I hate fighting my own people, especially when I keep having to let them take hits at me because they aren't in control of their actions anymore. Instead, I drive my fist into his face. A broken nose isn't the worst thing, but all it seems to do is piss him off more. I'm almost twice as big as this orc, but he fights with what seems like boundless strength. Whatever causes this berserker rage makes them seem much stronger. It was similar when Irish went into his rages. Watching him now fight off those just as crazed as he used to be is like watching him battle his past self, the one before his cure, before Camille. I hear a battle cry as a fresh wave of orcs led by Loki enters the training yard. It's about time. But even with more on our side, it's still a long, brutal battle to subdue them. Fighting against people who I've called friends makes my heart feel sick, especially knowing they aren't in control of themselves. Conscious betrayal is heartbreaking, but they're taken over and there is no chance to reason with them. So I fight on, pulling my blows so I don't cause them any permanent harm. Though some will be needing Bonnie's help after. I have to survive on the hope she made it out of here safely. The last I saw her, she was running with the water jug in her arms. I'm not sure why, but I have to trust she knows what she's doing. As the numbers of berserkers start to dwindle, and victory seems so near, I turn to see Loki surrounded by his battle-crazed brethren. I rush to him, pushing aside one of the affected and slamming another with the pommel of my sword. "Loki! Look out!" I yell, but I'm a second too late. He barely has time to dodge. All I can do is watch as a frenzied orc swings a cruel machete, opening up a large gash on the chieftain's back. When the attacker raises his blade again, this time aiming for Loki's neck, I block it with my weapon, sending sparks flying as metal grinds on metal. I throw myself at the orc, tackling him to the ground before striking him in the face several times until he goes limp. I turn around to see Loki lying face down in the dirt. The wound is deep. Not only is there blood, but I see parts of Loki that are meant to be on the inside. I don't have Bonnie's medical knowledge, but I know that's a bad sign. The blow could have cut him in two. I rush over and see that his heart still beats, but that's only because I can see he's still bleeding. I pick up my fallen comrade and rush him to the clinic as Yurish leads the other orcs to pacify the last of our red-eyed brethren. When I reach the clinic, Doc is there with Bashok, and they take Loki from me. I look around and then see Bonnie. I feel the weight of worry lift off me, though her face shows anything but relief. She runs over. "Lay down. You're bleeding. We need to treat you," she says, already trying to push me towards a bed. I look down at myself, blood running all down my front. I had only a few cuts, nothing major, and then I realize where the blood came from. "It's not my blood. Loki's hurt," I say. "Not all of it. I can see the cuts on you. Let me..." "No!" I say much louder than I intended. "Loki needs your help first. I don't know if he's going to live. With all this chaos, our clan needs its chieftain. He must come first." Bonnie nods and rushes to the bed where Loki lay, surrounded by her grandfather and our clan's shaman. I hope that he'll live. Someone is trying to tear this clan apart because they hate humans that much. I'm ashamed of the ignorance I held on to about them, but even when I thought I hated them, it was never to the point I would do something like this. But who hates them enough to be this extreme? Doc Alvin steps away from Loki as more injured are brought in. When our eyes meet, he just says, "We'll have to wait and see. Are you all right?" "I'll live. Treat the others first." I look out at those hurt in the fight. They can't treat the berserk orcs very well. They have to be tied down, which makes examining them hard. I doubt whoever did this would have taken their own poison. Then I see Orok. He's opposed Loki at almost every step, and has never had a word of kindness to say about humans. But then I see the wound on his arm. It's possible he couldn't control the beasts he's made. But why would he join the fray if this was all part of his plan? When Bonnie appears by my side, she looks tired. "Loki?" I ask. "We'll have to wait and see," she says as she starts cleaning and stitching my wounds. "We managed to stop all the bleeding, but Shog is applying healing poultices." "What are we going to do about the affected orcs?" "We have a sample of the water, the possibly contaminated water, and we are trying to develop a treatment based on the herb used to treat Yirish. Is he okay?" "Last I saw, he was." She finishes the last stitch and I have to laugh. "You're too good at that. I don't know if it will even scar." She hugs me and says, "We're going to do our best to find a cure for the orcs. I don't know if I'll be home tonight. I'll bring you and the others some food." "Thank you." After bringing some food for everyone, I head back out to keep an eye on things. The day passes in a haze of stress and paranoia. By the evening, Inzo and Jorgen take control of the clan as we wait to see if Loki will live. From their talk, it seems like they aren't throwing the humans out. Yet. But I don't feel hopeful. I think they're only delaying to see if Loki can recover. He'll have their heads if he awakens and finds they made such a decision while he was out. Maybe literally. In the meantime, they've put more soldiers on the street. Considering someone wants to be rid of the humans and we don't know how, everyone is on edge. I try to watch over the humans as best I can, though they're not feeling particularly trusting at the moment. I can't blame them. Unfortunately, I can count on one hand the number of people I feel I can trust right now. If I can't find the person behind this, I don't know if anyone will be safe. I don't want to see anything happen to the humans, but especially not to Bonnie. It's getting dark when I visit the clinic again, bringing something for a late evening meal. Bonnie looks exhausted but thankful for the food. As she eats, Alvin bursts out of the back of the clinic. I stand, ready for a fight, but I see his face is joyous. "Bonnie, it works! The medicine works!"
Chapter 26. Bonnie. I breathe out a sigh of relief as I hug Grandpa. It was a long shot for the herb to work. I still don't know what it is exactly. The first time I ever saw it, it was in Ivory's hands when I brought in the water jug. "Please tell me I didn't run that water here for nothing," I say. Grandpa's eyebrows furrow. "Oh, it worked in the sample. I haven't actually given it to an orc yet, but I isolated what was in the water. Bashag showed me how to extract the medicine from the herb. A small dose neutralized the contaminant. We're brewing it into a tea that we just pour down their throats, and then maybe we can actually start treating their injuries from the battle." I turn to Ur. "I need to get back to work. Thank you for feeding us." "I'd like to watch if I could," he says. It, seems interesting." I have the feeling that his motivation is less scientific interest and more concern for my safety. But I don't call him on it. He's scared something might happen to me. I can't shake the worry either. Now that the clinic is no longer wall-to-wall injured orcs, there's room for him to stay by my side. We brew the first batch of medicinal tea, and I know who the first test subject should be. Malthu. I didn't learn his name until later, but the first orc seemed okay after some time, but then had recurring episodes. He's been under guard since the attacks happened without any noticeable trigger. I'm glad to have Ur with me when we visit. The streets feel different as we walk the tea to Malthu's house. There are a lot more soldiers out, and the orcs are eyeing the humans suspiciously. I don't like it. The air feels charged, like something is about to happen, something bad. When we come to Malthu's house, Ur asks the guard outside, "How is he today?" The guard nods and says, "He's been calm today, which makes me think he's due for another episode soon. You might want to wait to speak with him." "We really can't wait," I say. It took Malthu almost 48 hours to calm down. Some of the berserk orcs are going to do themselves permanent damage if we have to wait that long to treat them. "Don't say I didn't warn you," grumbles the guard. When we go inside, Malthu is sitting at his kitchen table, playing some sort of orcish card game with another guard. "Dr. Hart," he says, looking sheepish. It's the same every time I see him. He still feels guilty about attacking me, like he should have stayed in control. Malthu, we have something that might be a cure, I say, holding up a thermos. Really? He asks. We haven't tested it on an orc yet, I say. We need... I'll do it. I heard about what happened at the training yard. If I can help spare anyone else this hell, I'll do it. Thank you, But my words die in my throat when I see Malthu's eyes light up, shining red. Oh, shoot, the guard says. Help me hold him down, Ur says as they tackle Malthu to the ground, upending the table and sending cards everywhere. I watch as they wrestle him, Ur quickly putting him in a headlock. Hold his mouth open, I order as I step closer. I'm so glad it's Ur with me. He's perhaps one of the few orcs able to do it, and do it delicately enough he doesn't dislocate Malthu's jaw while holding his mouth open. I pour the tea down Malthu's throat. He sputters and coughs, but I think enough goes down because the crazed light in his eyes fades almost instantly. When he comes to his senses, he looks up at me and around at the orcs holding him down. It happened again. I'm so sorry, Doctor. Heart. You shouldn't have to apologise, but I'd appreciate it if you and your guards came back to the clinic with me. I want to run some tests to see if the medicine really worked. Sure, anything to help. Back at the clinic, I take a blood sample. The contaminant is still there, though not as prevalent. Within an hour, it's gone. Malthu, I'd like you to stay here overnight, just to be sure there aren't any negative side effects. Irish has been taking this stuff regularly for a while now, but everyone reacts to things differently. Dr. Hart, if this means I won't have these two, he nods towards the two guards, then I'll do whatever you need. It hasn't been all bad, the one who'd been at the door says. Speak for yourself, scoffs the second, rubbing his jaw where Malthu hit him. Ur helps as we give the other orcs the medicine. At first, I'm worried it won't work, but it only takes a little longer to kick in for them. Convincing them that they need to stay the night is a bit harder. Again, Ur comes in handy. If you all don't stop complaining and listen to the doctors, I'll give you a more obvious reason to require their services. Understood? When the orcs finally agree, it's time for me and Ur to head home. As we walk away, I say, that was a very effective bluff. Bluff? I was serious. If I have to break some legs to get people to listen and make sure this actually works, I'll do it, no question. So, does this mean you're saying I'm always right? I ask. You've yet to be wrong, but I suppose it could happen. A possibility. He smiles down at me, but the warmth I feel from it fades once we are back out on the streets. I just hate that I can feel the paranoia and distrust in the air. I'm so glad to get home. I need a bath, I say as soon as we're inside. Me too, smiles Ur. Cleaner and a lot less stressed, I get ready for bed. When I finish pulling my nightdress over my head, I find myself about eye level with a kneeling Ur. Oh, hi, I say. Hi. Bonnie, I want you to know you are amazing today. Things are really hectic right now, and you've been handling it so calmly. You're the strongest person I know. I can't help but snort. Sorry, I apologise. You know what I mean. Yeah, I do, I say, leaning forward for a quick kiss. There's a lot of uncertainty ahead, but I want you to know one thing for certain. I love you. I want you to be mated to me and undergo the bonding ritual. My heart leaps, and I suddenly find it hard to speak. Filling the silence, Ur continues. If we do this, I'll be able to share my life force with you. Our bond will be another way I can protect you. You'd receive the war god's blessing. I still can't find the words. Years of study, tons of reading, and I can't find a single solid word. Tears fill my eyes as I wrap my arms around Ur's neck and pull him close. Is that a yes? He asks. Yes. That one-syllable affirmative response that had been so elusive the moment before is finally in my grasp. Yes, Ur. Yes, I'll be your mate. You didn't even need the sales pitch, I say, leaning back and dabbing my eyes with my sleeve. Those all sound like wonderful benefits. I was just, I don't know, too happy to speak. So yes, I want to be with you forever.
Chapter 27. I faced down beasts and hordes of enemy soldiers, and asking to be mated to Bonnie was perhaps the scariest thing I'd ever done. Even though I was almost certain Bonnie would say yes, given everything we'd said and done, I still felt scared. But now, as we stand before the small, secret gathering of our closest friends, I can't help but feel like fear has no place in my heart anymore. I still have worries. I look at Loki standing beside me, leaning heavily on his walking stick. I told the bastard he could sit, but he was determined to stand next to me on this day. In the 2 weeks since the attack, he's made a lot of progress, but he still has a way to go. Bonnie also wanted him to sit, but said I couldn't physically make him do it, since I could aggravate his injury. So, he stands there leaning on that walking stick, sweating from the effort it's taking to stand. Stubborn bastard. Typically, a bonding ceremony would be more public. But Bonnie and I agreed to do this privately to protect her. I expected her to object more, but she seemed happy with the people just gathered in my living room. Yurish and Vala helped me move everything out of the way. It was a real struggle since we didn't want to take anything outside. We don't want to draw any attention, but it's worth it so that Bonnie gets to wear her dress. She told me it was her mother's, and she'd wanted to be married in it since she was a little girl. I find it difficult to refuse her, so I made it work. And she looks lovely in it, the ivory color complementing her cream-colored skin. The top of the dress is form-fitting and reveals her bare shoulders and lovely long neck. The bottom sweeps out and barely brushes her ankles. I have Camille and her younger sister to thank for the complicated braids in Bonnie's hair. She is a vision in it. I'm surprised that there are still things that can be done to make a woman like her look more stunning, but the women have really outdone themselves. Camille stands behind Bonnie in a much simpler dress and brilliant smile as she admires her handiwork. Anything else before we begin? Bashag asks. I look at Bonnie again and she shakes her head no. We're ready, I say. Bashag begins to circle us, rattling the bones strung to his staff. In Orcish, he starts to chant, evoking the war god to bless our union, strengthen our bond, and give us many children. He repeats it once more in English for the benefit of the humans in the room, though it feels like a bit of the poetry of it is lost in translation. And may the fruit of your shared bodies fill legions. Bonnie's eyes go wide, and her skin flushes at the words. A man should not want his mate to be embarrassed, but she looks so damned adorable when it happens that I can't say I mind it all that much. Now, take your mate's hand so that we can bind you together, the shaman commands. Bonnie's delicate fingers intertwine with mine as best they can. My hands eclipse hers entirely. Then Bashag begins slowly wrapping our hands with a long twine rope laced with flowers and herbs that smell of home and hearth. As he wraps it delicately around our joined hands, he continues to chant. Every few lines, he pauses and then repeats it in English. It's part of the reason he's going so slow, but I can't say that I mind an excuse to just hold Bonnie's hand. Every time we touch, I can't deny the feelings it evokes. As he wraps the last of it, tucking the end into my palm, he stops and waits. The room is solemnly silent, except for the occasional sniffle from Alvin. The man loves his granddaughter very much, and I'm glad that our union brings him tears of joy. Bonnie's cousin, Mary, squeezes his hand, and she too has eyes brimming with tears. Bonnie's eyes sparkle with her own unshed tears as she looks at the intricate arrangement tying our hands together. The silence continues. The long pause after the binding is meant to give our god the chance to show some objection. But since no storm starts, and no one collapses to the ground ill, Bashag takes that as acquiescence. The bonding has been successful. Now Bonnie and are one. It's not just your bodies you share, but your spirit. I breathe a sigh of relief. I was a little worried Loki's legs would give out at an inopportune moment, though I don't know how much more standing he has in him. Bashag continues, "Let nothing and no one dare attempt to sunder this bound, for it is now unbreakable. You are bound together, now and forever." Loki steps forward to offer us his blessings. "May this union bring you true happiness," he says, and even through his slightly pained expression, I can see the twinkle in his eye. I know what he's about to say because he gave the same blessing at Irish and Camille's bonding ceremony. "And many Orklings," he finishes. A chuckle rolls through our small gathering, and Bonnie blushes again. Then each person in attendance comes forward to offer their own blessings. People seem to enjoy the ever-brightening shade of Bonnie's skin whenever anyone wishes us children. Last comes Alvin. "I wish you all the happiness and joy you can squeeze out of life, and as many children as you want," he says, looking at Bonnie before kissing her cheek. When he steps away, Bashag circles us again, laying down a trail of herbs, flower petals, and salt. "No one may enter this circle except for Ur and Bonnie. You have today sealed your bond. You are now mates for life." I lean down and kiss Bonnie. Since the day at the waterfall, we've shared many kisses, and I've come to enjoy all the various ways our lips can meet. But this somehow feels different than before. Even though it's brief and not a particularly passionate kiss in front of all our guests, it feels better somehow. Is that what it means to be bound to your mate? Does everything just feel better now? I look forward to testing that out later. I stand up again, my hands still tied to Bonnie's. Turning my head, I look at Loki and say, "Now, please go sit down." "I think I will," he says, his voice shaky. "I appreciate you not collapsing during the ceremony." I turn back to Bonnie, my mate, now and forever. She smiles at me but then scrunches up her face. "Is everything okay?" I ask in a low voice. "Yes, everything is beautiful. I'm just wondering how long we're supposed to keep our hands like this. I think my nose is starting to itch." As if summoned by the thought, I feel an itch forming above my eyebrow. I turn to Bashag and say, "Can you start unwrapping us?" With the way he smirks, I swear he's thinking about saying no and having us suffer. But instead, he says, "Step out of the circle." Bonnie and I carefully step to the side, and he begins unwinding our hands. After alleviating the itch, I take the rope from him. Traditionally, this would be displayed on the front door, but we're going to be keeping this a secret for a while. We can keep the salt circle up longer, but that too will have to be hidden. I want nothing more than to shout from the rooftops that Bonnie is mine, now and forever. But that will have to wait. For now, we celebrate what we have.
Chapter 28. Bonnie. Eventually, the well-wishers, the friends, the family, and the shaman all leave, and it is just Ur and me, sitting on a couch that was pushed far against the wall. "So, how long does that circle stay there?" I ask, looking at the salt circle. "A year." "A year." I look at him, trying to read his face. "Wait, you're just making fun of me." "Maybe a little," he says, as the corner of his mouth turns up slightly. "It doesn't need to stay there any longer than we want it to. But we can take care of it tomorrow. I was thinking we could do something else right now." His grin widened. "Okay, but you have to understand. You have to be very careful taking this dress off of me," I warn. "Don't get too excited." "Is it really that difficult to take off?" "Well." After almost half an hour of him undoing the buttons and hooks in the back of the dress that held it up, I learned a whole lot of new Orcish curse words. "Why are there so many and why are they so tiny?" he asks. I think it was meant to heighten the anticipation. "There's no need for that," he growls. "I know, but who knows? We might have a daughter one day who will get married in this." Ur laughed. "What's so funny?" I ask. "You don't want to have a daughter or something?" Oh no, not that. I just doubt a daughter of mine would be small enough to fit in it. There, I think I got them all. I shimmy out of the dress, leaving me in only the small pair of blue underwear I had. I thought it was a strange gift from Camille until she'd reminded me of some of the older human wedding traditions. I can feel Yu's eyes on me, and I know the hungry expression on his face without having to turn around to see it. I carefully pick up the dress and hang it up, fastening a few buttons so that the bodice maintains its shape. Then I close it in the closet, but keep my back to Yu. The underwear is small enough that from behind I may as well not be wearing them. Is there anything else I need to be especially careful about, or can I ravish you now? Yu asks. Ravish? Oh yes, please.
Sorry for the interruption. I know you were gearing up for a steamy scene, but it's way too hot for this platform.
If we want to keep sharing our stories for free, we have to abide by this platform's guidelines.
To get the full unabridged audiobook, go to worldsofprotheka.com.
Browse through unabridged audiobooks, countless ebooks and bundles offered at a discount.
If the thought of me whispering all the dirty details into your ear isn't enticing enough, use discount code YouTube30 to get 30% off of all digital products.
Story after story, audiobook after audiobook, the Worlds of Protheka are waiting for you.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
But unabridged, it's unforgettable.
Chapter 29, This time I'm prepared when we go to the falls. I know what to expect, or at least I think I do. I've seen Bonnie naked, spread out in front of me so many times before our bonding ceremony and so many times after. And yet, as she shimmies out of her clothes at the edge of the water, my breath still catches in my chest. She doesn't bother with leaving anything on this time, so neither do I. Stacking my clothes next to hers, I take her hand, and she shivers. Are you okay? I ask. Yeah. Winter is getting closer. The air is chilly. Let's get into the water, she says, holding her hand out to me. I take her hand in mine, and we wade into the water until it's deep enough that our feet no longer touch the bottom. Though, it's a lot more for me to get there. We said we just wanted to go for a swim, but I don't think either of us had any illusions about what would happen when we returned to the spot where we first made our feelings for each other obvious. As the sun starts to climb, the air around the hot springs warms up nicely. Bonnie doesn't even shiver when she stands on the rock in the center of the water. She's magnificent, and I know that I'm lucky to have her. As much as Samara and I want to finish what these two characters have started, it looks like this chapter is about to get too hot for this platform to handle.
Unfortunately, we have to pause here because their guidelines won't allow us to reveal the spiciest details.
To keep bringing you these free audiobooks, we have to follow their rules.
But don't worry. You can experience the full, unabridged version over at worldsofprotheka.com, where the boundaries of passion and fantasy collide.
Use code YouTube30 for 30% off any of our unabridged audiobooks set in the rich and immersive worlds of Protheka.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
And with these scenes, it will be unforgettable.
Chapter 30. Bonnie. Yu and I make plenty of time to practice over the next month, but I track my cycle and make sure we're prepared when the time really comes. Kids always seemed like a distant desire to me, but now with I want to meet our future children so badly, even if that future is a little uncertain. There haven't been any new attacks, no new orcs going berserk. Yu and I haven't announced we're married, but I'm beginning to suspect that people know he's more than just my bodyguard now. It might have something to do with the way I keep looking at him or blush furiously anytime anyone mentions his name. I can't help it. I really wish that was our biggest concern, but it's not. Not even close. Just because there haven't been any new attacks doesn't mean that there won't be. We never figured out who was behind everything, and there's ever-increasing tension in the air. Every day it feels more and more like we are moments away from violence erupting in the streets. And I want to meet our future children, even if they won't be the first half-orc, half-human babies. Forest is a miracle, though, and remembering being there for his birth and the weeks after makes me want one of my own now, even if Ur is already protective enough. Irish nearly lost it with his new baby, and even more so as his son is starting to crawl. Now his son can't sneeze without Irish rushing him to me to ask if he's going to be okay. It's starting to annoy Ur, but it comes to a head when I awake to the sound of someone knocking on the front door. I look around. I don't know what time it is exactly, but I know it's late, maybe midnight. Ur sits up in bed and says, "If that's him, he's a dead man." "He's not my only patient." "You're right," he says, standing. "He's not, but I'm not the one who needs to understand that." I follow Ur out of the bedroom and walk with him to the front door. When he opens it, I can't see anything, because Ur is completely blocking my view. "Go away," Ur growls, but I can guess who it is. Forrest's been getting sick. A fever, I think. I don't know what to do. We need a doctor. We trust Bonnie. "She's asleep," Ur says. "No, I'm not." I push past him and invite Irish in. Ur glares at the both of us, staying in the corner of the room, watching. "What happened?" I ask, but then can't suppress a yawn. "Sorry." "You shouldn't be the one apologising," Ur mumbles. "Like I said, he started running a fever," Irish says. "It's probably just teething." "But he doesn't have teeth." "It means they are starting to grow in. You won't see any for a few weeks, but his gums will hurt and he'll be a little warmer. It happens. It's worse for some than others. Some even have a hard time eating, but we've been monitoring Forrest. He's doing fine. If it becomes something where he won't keep any food or he's inconsolable, then we should be concerned. Bring him by the clinic in the morning and I—" "No," Ur interrupts. "Remember, you're taking the day off tomorrow, or today, whatever. You get the point." Ur has wanted me to take some time off since winter started, and it just so happens I should be ovulating, so I promised I'd take the day off. Not that I'm complaining. I just sort of get absorbed in my work. "Right. My grandfather can take a look. He's great at this. I promise. He delivered me and was a doctor years before that. Okay?" Irish looks like he wants to argue, but Ur pulls him to his feet by the shoulder. "Go!" Ur bellows. "I'm leaving." Irish growls at him, but then turns to me and says, "Thank you, doctor. We'll visit your grandfather tomorrow. I'll show myself out." When we hear the front door close, Ur plops down onto the couch, grumbling. Irish needs to relax. I can't help but laugh. "What's so funny?" Ur asks, annoyance creeping into his voice. "I just want you to remember this moment if I get pregnant." "When you get pregnant, I'll try not to be like Irish." "It's still an if, Ur," I remind him. "With the amount of practice we've been having, I think we have it down. There are a lot of factors at play when it comes to pregnancy. It's not a certainty." "Are you having any second thoughts?" he asks, slightly concerned. "Oh God, no. I want to. I just don't want you to get impatient or disappointed." "As long as I'm with you, I'm happy," he says, pulling me into his arms. "So, do you want to go back to sleep or get an early start trying to get pregnant?" We might as well get it out of the way," I say, trying and failing to suppress a grin. "If it's too much of a chore, we can skip it." "Oh, don't you dare. You, bed, now." In the morning, after another attempt to knock me up, I decide to let him try to go back to sleep while I make breakfast. As I cook up some breakfast potatoes, pushing them around in the pan so they get crispy on all sides, I can't help but think how lucky I am. Even in the midst of all that's been going on, with Irish freaking out and Ur getting upset and the looming threats, I'm happy. I have a man that I love, and he loves me. While the bodyguard excuse isn't that accurate, he's still protective of me. I didn't think I'd be the kind of woman who would like that, but it's nice to have someone watching out for me. And I can't say that I mind him telling me to stay home today. It's cold outside, and I get to keep warm and toasty inside. If someone had told me a year ago, I'd be happily making breakfast for my orc husband, and we'd be trying to have kids, I would have thought they were nuts. But I wish I could spread that happiness around a little more, especially with Mary. My younger cousin and I have always been close, almost like a sister, or at least what I think a sister would be like. But she's become very withdrawn lately. It makes some sense she'd be upset with everything that's been happening, but it used to be that she'd tell me about it. Now she's just been so withdrawn, and we've only exchanged mild pleasantries for the past few weeks. I hear a knock on the door. For a second I'm worried it's Irish, and Yor might try to kill him, but the knock is softer, almost timid. I don't even know if it would be loud enough to disturb Yor in the bedroom, but I push the pan off the heat and turn off the stove before opening the door. Standing there, shivering in the cold, is Mary. Her face is blotchy and red. She's been crying. "Oh God, Mary, come in," I say, half dragging her through the doorway and closing it behind her. "What's wrong?" Mary bursts into tears, and I wrap my arms around her. "Oh, Mary, let it out. Just let it out." I hold her, rocking her back and forth, rubbing her back as we stand in the entrance. I see a blurry-eyed Yor appear in the hallway, looking concerned. I shoo him away with a wave. I don't want to give Mary any reason not to talk, and while she seems to like Yor, I don't know if she's willing to cry in front of him or bare her soul. After another moment, Mary seems to be cried out. "Okay, Mary, do you think you can tell me what has you so upset?" Mary sniffles and says, "I'm pregnant." I blink at my cousin for a moment. It takes a while for my brain to shift gears since I just got done trying to get pregnant. But Mary's still young, only 23, and obviously this isn't the joyous news to her that it would be for me. "Who's the father?" I ask.